My name is Dale Unland, as most of you know, and I'm currently the fundraising committee chair for the Wetaskiwin Theatre Society. I'm joined today by George Krunik, president of the Society, and Marguerite Jansen Van Dorn, our executive director. I'd also like to recognize the other two members of the fundraising committee, Russ Aney, a retired insurance broker, and Nancy Schlag, current member and treasurer of the Wetaskiwin Theatre Society and manager of the Bank of Montreal. To be respectful of your time, I'll cut to the chase. Our ask, as outlined in the application for grant and aid, is for the city to provide $15,000 in funding to assist our organization in being able to fund our operations. With your support and that of the community and our incredible volunteers, the theater has been able to stay afloat during the pandemic. While we're back open and operating under the restriction exemption program, we are encouraged by the audience and response and the community support of our events thus far this season. We are anticipating it will take at least 18 to 24 months before we will see recovery to a level where we can anticipate the possibility of reaching our goal of self-sustainability. Just in regards to that, we were one of the very first theaters to open up under the new rules. One of the first theaters in Alberta. Event ticket sales and facility rentals are our main source of revenue. Since July, we have presented 7 main stage events, 19 performances, and we are working at diversifying our season offerings to appeal to a broader audience and activities seeking sponsorships from the corporate community to help cover expenses, which will allow us to host these events for our community and bring a little sunshine to people's lives. The board has been very proactive this past year and has developed a 5-year strategic plan, which is helping us to focus our efforts on fiscal recovery and to guide us forward. We feel that the city has a very important role to play in the success of this strategic plan. We continue to work towards providing a facility that the community can be proud of. We continue to utilize local businesses for supplies and services. We are working with bus charters to bring in groups to attend performances and are partnering with restaurants and hotels to provide discounted meals and accommodation for our patrons and our entertainers. So what is your role and why should the City Council continue to support the Wetaskiwin Theatre Society, especially at a time when everyone is hat in hand? Revenues are squeezed, costs are increasing. By assisting the society with funding, these monies support not only our executive director position, which manages the daily operations, bookings, and programming of events, and helps us offset our utility and insurance costs. Supportive funding also frees up the board to focus their attention on the longer term and bigger picture strategies identified on our strategic plan, and which have become more integral to the survival of any organization. The funding supports the care and maintenance of one of the city's historic jewels in the downtown core. Every entertainer that comes to perform in our theater falls in love with the acoustics and the vibe of the auditorium, and the audiences love the historic restorations and the intimate setting. The board has demonstrated a proven record of executing its fiduciary duty, and we continue to look for ways to continue to fund our operations, build capital, and provide for the continued growth of the theater, even within the current health guidelines. We are also requesting the support of the city in terms of the tax exemption for nonprofit organizations. For the first time in our history, we've been informed by the city's assessor that due to our current AGLC liquor license, which is designation, which is Class B theater, we may not qualify for a tax exemption. The reason that we have a Class B license is so that we don't have to apply for a liquor license for each and every function. And if we have had a different class license, that is exactly what it would be. We'd have to apply for each and every one separately. Our liquor purchases for an entire year would not exceed $2,000. So we serve very little liquor, but it is an incentive for some in our audience who do appreciate a glass of wine or a beer during the performances. We are asking that you consider re-examining this issue. We simply cannot afford a tax bill. Regardless of what happens in the future and the outcome of this meeting, the theater will continue to function, albeit in maybe a different fashion. This year, 2022, the Wetaskiwin Theatre Society marks its 20th year of incorporation. We hope to celebrate this milestone with a gala event in the fall. We're extremely proud of being able to operate the Manluck Theatre, a unique facility which is an important asset to the community, providing opportunities for individuals to express their creativity and bringing together people of varying ages and socioeconomic backgrounds. These are all elements that create a healthy community and enhance its social fabric, which in these uncertain times needs to be celebrated and promoted. Thank you for your consideration, and we are open to answering any questions you may have.
Does anyone have any questions to Dale? Yes, Councillor Elliott.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would just like to commend you on what you've done over the 20 years. And the other thing that you didn't mention, Dale, is the fact that you keep your prices as low as possible so more people can attend. They're not exorbitant, so you can get lots of different socioeconomic backgrounds coming into the theater, and I appreciate that as well. So thank you, and thank you for a very good presentation.
Thank you.
Anything else? Councillor Alberta.
I think my mic's been on this whole time. I'm going to second what Bill said, and I know we all believe that. And I just want to say thank you, and this is personal, but as we were going through the election and process, and I was really stressed, the Punch Drunk Cabaret really just gave me the, that was fun to just give me some relaxation. And that's one of the true benefits I see with the arts community, is that we can come and in our really hard days, I love it that I just have to go a couple blocks from work and you guys are there. So thank you for that and looking after the building, because you know it's close to my heart. So
Thank you.
Anything further? Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Next up, the Quilting Divas. I'm not sure. Chief. Perfect.
Mr. Chair, I'm going to declare a conflict of interest, as my wife is involved with the Quilting Divas and she will also be part of the quilt sale. So I'm just going to declare a conflict.
We're just taking information at this point. We're not debating whether or not we're.
I think I'm still going to declare.
And that's fine.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I'm on Zoom. My name is Sandy Klein. I know on the application I put Sandy Fittis and signed it as Sandy Klein, but I'm newly married. So I just,
Congratulations.
that's the reason why there's two different names on there. The Quilting Divas is a nonprofit quilting guild putting on a quilt show April 22nd, 23rd of 2022 to bring attention to the Wetaskiwin Arts and Crafts Society. Our guild has made a quilt to be raffled along with a toonie entry fee, with all proceeds going directly to the Wetaskiwin Arts and Crafts Society. It is a function including refreshments to help enlighten the public of our city facilities. Enjoyment and fun for everyone with hourly door prize draws. And I actually have a revision to our funding request, begging patience as we were unaware of the availability of this funding for our quilt show until 2 days before the closing date. So since then, I have gotten a price for raffle tickets, which we're selling for $175 for 1,000. So the grand total would be $1,100 that we're asking for. I open the floor to any questions.
Is there any questions? Hearing none. Thank you very much for your presentation. Come budget time, we will debate the issue and we will let you know. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for your time, councillors.
Next up, the Wetaskiwin District Museum Society. I'm not sure who's. Karen, do we have anybody online for that?
I don't see any familiar names.
Okay, then we will move on to the Reynolds Alberta Museum. I think I saw Cynthia online.
You did see me and my office.
Hello, Cynthia.
Kind
Welcome.
of frightening. Thank you. Oh, that's great. Thanks, Karen. Karen is going to be helping us today by presenting our PowerPoint. I've never done that before, where I've been in my office and the PowerPoint has been in someone else's location. So thank you, Karen, for doing that. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for providing us with an opportunity to present a proposal to you about city involvement with the Reynolds Alberta Museum's visitor experiences and promotion of those experiences this summer. Noel Raj has, oh, I see. Oh, there he is. Noel is on this call today as well, although he may be called away for another meeting. So thanks for coming, Noel. And also thank you, Karen, for helping us with our PowerPoint presentation today. So next slide, please. Reynolds Alberta Museum is requesting funding in the amount of $20,000, and this is in support of marketing and experiences aimed at having people choose to visit both the museum and the city of Wetaskiwin. The total project budget is $68,000, with the museum contributing $43,000, a partner throwing in a $5,000, and our request for $20,000. So our aim, of course, is to increase visitation and revenue both to the Reynolds Alberta Museum and to the city businesses. Next slide, please. Our goal is to increase visitation and revenue by attracting more than 34,000 visitors between June and September. 7% of our visitors come from the city of Wetaskiwin. So this means that there will be almost 32,000 people coming into this town who live outside our community, resulting in both economic impact and reputation building for the city. Next slide. We have developed a strategy that has been influenced by research. After 2 years of COVID-19, the museum is prepared for 2020, and we are embracing the opportunity for recovery. The COVID crisis presented many lessons and openings for change, and we would be really remiss if we didn't take this opportunity to address that change. So we are well positioned to take advantage what industry research is telling us about during the last few months. As you can see on the screen, priorities have shifted. Family first is now a priority with a greater focus on family activities. Going places that feel safe is important. Focusing on travel close to home, and that means in Alberta. And preference for purchasing local, so people not going to the big box stores anymore or more rarely. And then the power to purchase. Research shows that $300 billion is sitting in Canada in people's savings accounts waiting to be spent. It's not in investments, it's waiting. So we are ready to accept some of that money. I don't have any of it, by the way, but still. Next slide, please. The museum also does its own research. We are part of the EQ program, which is an Explorer Quotient Customer Identification Program used by Travel Alberta. And what that means is we ask every person who comes through the door to give us their postal codes. We did that this past summer. So from June to October, we had postal codes that I could send to Travel Alberta for analysis. The report has come back to us, and I've shared that report with the city, with Raylene. And so she has had a chance to look at this as well. So this report tells us where our visitors get their information. It tells us their age, their family status, their diversity, their demographics, their education, their occupation, and their household income. So kind of scary, but we do have that information. We also do research through our social media comments and reviews on our various platforms, including Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, TripAdvisor, and Google. And we also look, of course, at our visitor reaction. And in 2021, we could see what their reaction was to the experiences we offered and also how involved they were in those experiences. Next slide, please. So our strategy is threefold. The museum is responding to the change based on the research using our areas of strength. So our areas of strength include providing memorable experiences in a close to home, so in Alberta, location, family-friendly environment, safe, spacious, and COVID responsible environment to people. Our strategy has three components this year: exhibits, events, and new and unusual experiences. So the first thing I'd like to share with you is the exhibits that were part of this summer. Our current exhibit, which will close October 2022, so we have a whole summer season for it, is Motorbike Mechanicus, a Love Story. It's a partnership with Grand Prairie Regional College Fairview Campus, and it provides an overview of the 3 mechanics programs they offer, including Canada's only Harley-Davidson training program. And this has been very responsive. Our visitors have been very responsive to this and to this exhibit online. So Karen, I'd like you to play this short commercial if you'd like. Thank you.
Absolutely love this. Motorbike Mechanicus, a love story now on it. Alberta Museum and attached to it.
As you can see, this short video had the City of Wetaskiwin logo on it because we did run this program as well last year with this commercial. The other exhibit will be part of this year is presenting a great opportunity for us. The Royal Alberta Museum is presenting a new exhibit, and it is looking at historic innovations that influence modes of transportation we use today. But the key to this is that that exhibit is comprised of vehicles from Reynolds Alberta Museum. So we will have a big presence in Detour's Royal Alberta Museum's marketing campaign. Next slide, please. Another one of our events, is the Ultimate Car Show. So this is the second part of our strategy. So first we had exhibits, now we're looking at events. So we will have 3 major events this summer. One is our car show, the Ultimate Car Show. It'll be held July 9th. And if you want to run this slide, please, this is from, I think, 2013, but it will be very similar, but with changes to involve families. So if you could play that. So this is just to give you an example of this size and extent of the number of visitors who come to participate with us and see our special events. Next event that we'll be having is Ride to Reynolds, August 20th. And this video includes interviews with some of the people who visit us during that event.
That's part of all coming up with there's so many family members out here. Just a group of riders we have out here. That's a beautiful museum. Out there, down and enjoy it. That's what I can see and become with us.
So that's an overview of what our grounds look like when over 1,150 motorcycles and their riders and our visitors come into one place. So there's an impact certainly in the community of Wetaskiwin. The next special event will be Harvest Festival, September 3rd and 4th this year. And again, here's a video, Karen, if you don't mind playing, with interviews of our event this past summer.
We came out to visit, so we found her from Edmonton. Agriculture community, we have cattle and grain, so we just past practice, how they work. I think it's really important to keep that kind of tradition alive. Like, it's my first time being here. I'm actually like it really fun. Learn a lot of farming.
Thank you. And next slide, please. So the third component of our strategy is offering new authentic experiences that people probably won't be able to get anywhere else. We're teaching people how to drive a Model T. We're offering behind the scenes tours of the warehouse, providing new videos in our galleries that enable people to see what's actually inside some of those vehicles, although they are not allowed to cross the barriers. And then some new interpreter-led programs for people, penny farthings to motorcycles, how engines work, and Wheel of Fortune, which is a game, a trivia game or Wheel of Trivia, a trivia game throughout our galleries. So Karen, if you could just pop on our behind the scenes tour video. Oh. And so it's also a diet program.
60 years ago, one of the next vehicles of the body, 60. Collection that is not on display. It's preserving Western Canada's heritage, especially when it comes to mechanization. You see a very large variety of prototypes. We have the oldest car in the collection is here. It's an 1898 Higgins chassis. We also
the Chevrolet with 2 of the original run. We also have a full-scale model of the Afro Arrow here. That's all models of that plane were destroyed. It's very rare to see even a model. People want to see inside the warehouse. There's pretty much only a once-a-year opportunity, and that's to come see our warehouse tour in July and August. It's at 2 o'clock every day. I don't know if there's another place in the planet that has a collection like this all in one place.
Thank you, Karen. So as you can see, our strategy consists of 3 components. So now what? Next slide, please. We know who our audience is, we know where they're from, and we know what they like to do, and we know how they get their information because we've used our EQ surveys to find that out. So then, next slide. So we're going to tell people about the great experiences they'll have here through our social media platforms, television, radio, print, online publications, and hopefully also using our partners' platforms as a way to reach out to customers. Next slide. How will the city be involved in this? In the first area of our strategy, in the exhibit component, the city of Wetaskiwin will be involved in our 6-week television campaign for Motorbikers Mechanicas. Also in our Info Edmonton magazine and Info Edmonton rack cards, as you can read there, our Go East of Edmonton publication and online, and of course our social media booths. With the detours program through the Royal Alberta Museum and what their marketing campaign will be, we are going to be part of that. We are going to be doing a cross-promotion coupon with the Royal Alberta Museum that will be directed at 60,000 of their social media followers. So people will buy an admission to the Royal Alberta Museum and get to come to Reynolds Alberta Museum for free. And people will buy an admission at the Reynolds Alberta Museum and get to go to the Royal Alberta Museum for free. So they will also be providing a direct mail campaign to 18,000 of their museum members, and we will be involved in that promotion as well. Next slide, please. The city will be involved in the second component of our strategy, and that will be our special events. We will have campaigns for each of the special events. In the Ultimate Car Show event, the campaign will run from June 20 to July 8th. Ride to Reynolds will run from August 2nd to 19, and Harvest Festival will run August 22nd to September 3rd. This is on top of all of the promotions that will go on all summer for the exhibit. The third component of our strategy will be our exceptional experiences that we've developed, like the new learn how to drive a Model T and so on. And those experiences will be a social media campaign only and will run from May till September. Next slide. So the city will be involved in the 3 components that I've talked about. And I've just outlined here the special events component because it may be the most significant. That is that the city will be one of 2 partners in each event. We'll provide logo and voice recognition on all our traditional and social media platforms. Name and hashtag mention of the city on all our social media posts. Links to this city website from our website, and booth or display space provided to promote the city during each of our special events on our grounds. Next slide. And then we will measure, how did we do? So we're looking at how many people are visiting Reynolds Alberta Museum and Wetaskiwin. We're looking at media coverage of our special events and activities. Also, the public responses to the purchase media that we will have through their online platforms, as well as our own online platforms, and then people interacting with us online. Next slide, please. So that's it. Thank you so much. Thank you for considering our request and for giving us the opportunity to speak to you today. And also, Karen, thank you very much for helping with that PowerPoint. I don't think I could have done that. So thanks very much. And now we're happy, Noel or I, to answer any questions that you might have.
Are there any questions? Councillor Elliott.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Cynthia, for that presentation. That was very thorough. I appreciate it. Cynthia, I was just wondering, how many visitors did you have in 2021? You've projected 34,000, but was that last year's count?
No, that wasn't last year's count because it was we opened June 23rd last year. And that count took us, that I presented to you, the count from June 23rd to the end of September was 17,000 people. But we were only open 5 days a week, and this year we will be open longer. We were in a different COVID experience than we anticipate will be this year with everything opening up. And so it is based on the previous year, probably we're back to regular admissions is what we're anticipating. So in 2019, that was our visitation.
Okay, thank you. And when did you officially change your name to Reynolds Museum?
We have not officially changed our name to Reynolds Museum, but it is our quick and easy way to explain ourselves.
But you are having a name change, are you not?
No, would you like to address that?
At this point, we are actually, I'm hoping people can hear me. At this point, we are not having a name change. I am looking into that as this point. But what it is our official name will continue to be Reynolds Alberta Museum, but our marketing approach will be Reynolds or Reynolds Museum, because that's how people do refer to us. And it's kind of like the Royal Tyrrell Museum of Paleontology. Not too many people actually call it that. They call it the Royal Tyrrell or the Tyrrell.
Okay. I just noticed that on some of the slides that you didn't have Alberta on there, so that was all. And Cynthia, my last question is, if you don't get the full $20,000, what happens to the campaign?
If the city decides not to provide the whole amount, then we will reduce the shared marketing that we were presenting. It would reduce where the city's visual identity and promotions would appear on our sites.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Councillor Eberle.
Thank you. Cynthia, you and I have, great presentation, and thank you. You and I have spoken about, you have these ideas of sort of day trips. So you come to the Reynolds and then you have lunch and you go shopping and you do sort of things. You had those ideas. Would that be part of this marketing campaign?
No, it wouldn't. I actually did a campaign in 2020. It was called Out and About in Wetaskiwin, and I did reach out to businesses in the community to partner with us. It was done free of charge for the businesses because we are a big part of the business community in Wetaskiwin, and we felt that it would be a good idea to give people reasons to come to Wetaskiwin. So 3 things to do in Wetaskiwin. 2 things to do in Wetaskiwin. So one of them, for example, was visit Reynolds Alberta Museum, have lunch at Yanni's Cafe, and I don't know, one of the other things. And it was quite an extensive campaign. It lasted about 5 weeks, and it was done by the museum on behalf of everybody. But we would not be doing that this year.
Okay, thank you very much. That's all.
Anything further? Noel, liked your jersey, should have kept that on. Cynthia, last year, what was provided to the museum for 2021?
We received 0 funds.
Thank you.
We did not request any. We did not request any for last year. We still had a little bit left over from the previous year, and we just used that.
Thank you. Anything further? Thanks so much once again.
Thank you.
Next up is the Wetaskiwin Music Festival Association. I think I saw Bev. Yes, there's Bev. Good morning, Bev.
Deputy Mayor and City Councilors. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you today. regarding the Wetaskiwin Music Festival grant and aid application. My name is Bev Sweet, and I've had the privilege of serving the board of Music Festival as the executive director for over 30 years. I'd like to also introduce on my call this morning, our call is Ms. Barb Johnson, who is also a current board member. As many of you know, the Wetaskiwin Music Festival was started 43 years ago by the local Kiwanis Club of Wetaskiwin. Kiwanians ran a very successful festival for the first 24 years until the club did not renew their charter, thus the beginning of the Wetaskiwin Music Festival Association, a non-for-profit volunteer board. The board is about to run its 43rd Wetaskiwin Music Festival starting April 28th to May the 5th. The association will run a live music festival in various locations within the city of Wetaskiwin, including churches and local schools. This live youth-focused music festival is the only cultural and educational event that occurs within the city of Wetaskiwin on an annual basis. In non-COVID years, the festival has hosted over 1,200 participants from the city and county of Wetaskiwin. The participants perform in piano, vocal, musical theater, school choirs, community choirs, school bands, school jazz bands, choral speech, string, and instrumental classes. The festival will end with a festival concert on May 13th with over 25 performances being showcased at our local First United Church. There are many benefits to having a music festival for young performers in Wetaskiwin, and I'm sure you're all aware of the many studies completed over the years, and more recently one commissioned by the United Nations that shows that music students on average have higher marks, less disciplinary issues, and are more likely to succeed than those who do not study music. There are many scientific reasons, of course, for this. The processing of the left brain, right brain thinking is only one theory. But for me as a parent, I knew that my children had to set goals, be creative, organize their schedule, and have practice time and be a team player when playing in a group setting and having the wonderful ability to communicate with people through their music. The festival, while in part a competitive festival for some classes, is open to all students and music groups, both private and school, from the Wetaskiwin area. There are many reasons why students enter festival. Again, it goes back to setting goals for some. To take a piece of music, learn it inside and out, make it their own, and perform it for their peers, family, and friends, and an adjudicator. The adjudicators are professional musicians, teachers who critique the music and give positive yet constructive ideas on how to improve the music. Sometimes they bring a different slant to the music that a student or teacher may not have thought to do so. So the main objective of our festival is one of education, but there is, like in life, a competitive side to the festival as well. We have continued to offer scholarships in piano, voice and strings, and instrumental classes, which are handed out again at our annual concert, where we showcase many performances to celebrate the talented youth in our area. Some performers also get recommended on to the provincial festival in Edmonton. Wetaskiwin has always had a great representation at this festival, and starting this summer, they can be recommended on to the new Canada West Festival, which will be held in Saskatoon in July. Most of you probably don't realize that the first music festival in Canada was held in Edmonton in 1908 under the influence of someone known more for football than music. Earl Grey was Canada's Governor General between 1904 and 1911 and is best known for establishing the Grey Cup in football. During his tenure, he was much greater influence in Canada. When he took the office, he was dismayed to find no music festivals such as they had in England. Under his influence, the Alberta Music Festival was founded, and then they ran the first music festival. In later years, the Edmonton Kiwanis Club would take over the operation of this festival. And as a note to you football fans, the Grey Cup as we know it today was not the first Grey Cup. First one was actually given for annual competitions and music festival movement, but it somehow disappeared in Winnipeg in the early 1930s. Getting back to our grant application and aid, we believe our donations may be lower again this year from businesses due to continued strain on those businesses over the past 2 years, of course, due to COVID-19. We've just sent out all of our fundraising letters and have attempted to reach out to more businesses than in the past. We've kept entry fees to the performers the same for this year and opting not to increase it for at least this year. We also are aware that we may not have as many school groups due to the issues within schools and classes currently being offered band and choir, but we do believe that our solo, piano, vocal strings will be about the same as in the past few years. After having to quickly change from a live music festival within a short amount of time last year due to the changes in COVID restrictions, we're currently planning on running a live music festival using those venues in Wetaskiwin and hosting an annual concert But with lessons learned from last year, we will be able to very quickly change over to a live Zoom festival if needed again this year. Costs, of course, for supplies and adjudicators will not be lowered by running a virtual festival. One of the questions in the grant asks how this project will affect the city of Wetaskiwin as a community. The Music Festival Board is proud to offer our festival as the only project in the city that celebrates and promotes performing arts for the youth of Wetaskiwin. It benefits the city by promoting not only the young musicians, but one of our most important things that Wetaskiwin has to offer, its citizens and how they volunteer their time to promote an event. Yes, the festival celebrates the successes of its performers by recognizing them for their dedication to the performing arts. But in order to run this festival 7 days, many volunteers are required. Each year, we're able to quickly fill up those volunteer spots to help with the venues, either as venue monitors or clerks to help assist the adjudicators who work from 9 to 8 each day at multiple venues. Each year, our adjudicators comment not only on the exemplary level of teaching within the private and public sectors, but they're always impressed with the level of volunteerism for the festival. As well, these adjudicators do stay in our local hotels and eat in our local restaurants during the days they work with Wetaskiwin. Our reputation in the music community and throughout the province is very well received. We engage adjudicators who have worked for the festival in the past years, and they're always happy to return back to Wetaskiwin as they know the level of teaching and the great volunteers who give their time to help promote performing arts in Wetaskiwin. Wetaskiwin is a member of the 36 local festivals under the Alberta Music Festival and is well known for running an excellent music festival. We believe that when people are looking to relocate to the city or a town in Alberta, they may be looking for a great hockey community, which we acknowledge we do have a great one. But a number of families also want to know about the arts community, and that they see that Wetaskiwin has supported 42 years of a successful music festival. Wetaskiwin is known throughout the province for having a vibrant performing arts community through our performances at the provincial level and by recommendations of our adjudicators who come repeatedly to Wetaskiwin. Closing, I wish to share just a recent study by the government of Alberta that says 1 in 3 people in the province have been involved in local music festivals, either by performing in them or volunteering with them. And in 2019, the last festivals run pre-COVID, there were over 160,000 entries across Canada in local music festivals. That involves over 500,000 young people. Wetaskiwin Music Festival Board strongly believes in our mandate to promote the appreciation of and participation in music and speech arts for the citizens of the city and the county of Wetaskiwin. We want to attempt to give some type of normal experience of running a live music festival this spring for our young musicians, while still, of course, following AHS guidelines. And again, if we cannot run a live in-person festival, we will offer again a live Zoom festival for all of our performers. Thank you for considering our applications, and if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you very much, Bev. Any questions? Councillor Aberley.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Bev, if I may, I fully support the festival to celebrate locally as well. And so your answer isn't deciding anything. I just wanted the opportunity to know how many visitors would come to the festival as well. Like, is there a group of people that go to all the festivals in a year? Is it bringing others into our community?
Not really. We do have people that, of course, that study with local teachers that are from out of town. So I do know there are a number of families that would come in and spend the day when they're performing. Wetaskiwin has chosen to keep our entries locally. Some festivals in Edmonton, you can come from all over the province, but Wetaskiwin over the years has chosen, because our money does come from local businesses, we only allow students to come into the festival that either study with a teacher that lives in the city or county Wetaskiwin, or they actually reside here.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Anything further? Have you supplied your financial statement? And I do have a question about that. Under your assets that you have over $22,000 in cash and $33,000 in GICs, what's the plan with that money when going forward?
Certainly. So the 33,000 is locked up, and there's a long history to that. The piano at the Memorial Arts Center, if you recall, many years ago, was bought by the Arts Council. It then went off to the Kiwanis Club when they closed, and then when the Kiwanis Club closed, they gave that piano to the Wetaskiwin Music Festival. Wetaskiwin Music Festival then, because the Art Center was not being used, sold it to the United Church after their building, of course, it burned. So that money is sitting and is locked up as per board decision, so that in case at any point in time that there is another facility that we could use, that money could go towards purchasing of a piano. So it is locked up and not touched at this point in time. So we have no plans for that money, because they say it, if we ever get another facility that would work for us, then we would use that perhaps to purchase another piano.
Thank you. Anything further? Thank you very much for the presentation.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Next up is the Edmonton International Raceway. And Loretta, yes, hi, come on in. Welcome.
Thank you very much for having me present today. I really appreciate the opportunity. The drive from Sherwood Park was a little bit testy, but it was okay. Thanks. The roads were well done in Wetaskiwin, so thank you. So going back to last year for 2021, COVID did play a part in our race season for the last couple of years. However, last year wasn't too bad. We were able to open in July, and typically we open around mid-April or mid-May. And our season was okay. It was actually quite good. The race car count was good, and the spectator count was good. And I think what a lot of it had to do with is a lot of the people really had nowhere else to go. And the nice thing about that is that we did learn, a lot of people kind of researched places to go and found us and may have not found us before. And so we got a bunch of brand new people coming out to the racetrack. So that was really good. Sorry, I'm behind on the slides. If you maybe go to slide number 4, thank you. Right there. Perfect. So we always look forward to working with the city of Wetaskiwin on many of our events. We continue with our donations of our NASCAR stock car test drive package to many Wetaskiwin charities for their fundraising efforts. And we provide the raceway for local charities to host their 50-50 fundraising events. So some of the people who have come out are some of the groups, Boys and Girls Clubs of Wetaskiwin, the Wetaskiwin Ag Society, Wetaskiwin Cadets, the Gwyn School and Ski Hill, Wetaskiwin Heritage Museum, the Millet Minor Hockey and Alberta Cancer Society. And if you go to the next slide. So we have put out a call to action for any clubs who may want to do their 50-50 at the racetrack. They can contact me, and basically they just need to have a license from Alberta Gaming, and they are welcome to use our spectators and sell the 50-50 tickets to our people. Next slide. So in 2021, we finally debuted our brand new NASCAR stock car test drive cars. So we upgraded these cars from 1979 Camaros and Firebirds to brand new super late models, which are very similar to the ones you would see in NASCAR if you were to watch a NASCAR program on TV. So the cool thing about that is with this program, it's the only one available in Western Canada. And instead of going to the US, you can experience the same program here in Wetaskiwin. So with travel restrictions still being quite challenging, you can come to Wetaskiwin and take the NASCAR stock car test drive for much less the price and experience right here in town. So that's been a really good promotion for us. So using that one, we've this year we're going to concentrate on our travel local campaign and let people know that they can do these types of activities right here in Wetaskiwin. So there's our new promotion. The young couple up there were part of the Wetaskiwin City blog that the influencers came out and they had fun. They did that. They spent the day after there out at the track for the test drive. And then we just kind of had that little cartoon thing that there's a test drive, but this is a real test drive. So, and then so we've missed our big NASCAR Pinty's race for 2020 and 21. We've signed a contract for 2022 and for 2023. I'm really thinking that we can do it this year. We're pushing forward. The whole problem and before, of course, was COVID and these teams coming out from Ontario. So I think we're going to move ahead. We're excited about that. So Bear is on board again, and they are. It was the Luxor 300. Now they've changed it to the Bear 300, and a really cool thing about this event is that on February 6th, NASCAR in the US is debuting the Busch Light Clash, which is a big debut for their NASCAR race season. And they're doing it at the LA Coliseum in California. They're building a track specifically for this big race with all the big names. And that track will be exactly the same size as our track. And I'm going to be really using that marketing comparison that you don't need to go to California. You're going to see the same race here in Wetaskiwin for the Bear 300. And that is really cool because NASCAR does not run on tracks that size. And we're a 1/4 mile paved oval. And this one is built specifically at the LA Coliseum. Apparently they've only got 1,000 tickets left. And I think they probably hold about 50,000 people there. So that's huge. We're working with A&W here in Wetaskiwin, and we're going to be doing a NASCAR picnic in the park on the Friday of the big race of the 22nd and the 23rd. So at lunchtime, so I reached out to Slava at the mall and we've agreed to have it there. And I think that's a really good spot. So the big haulers from our NASCAR teams will come kind of circle at the mall in the parking lot. We'll have free burgers, we'll have musical entertainment, and people can just stop by. It's all free. They can stop by, have a burger, meet some of the NASCAR racers. And the cool thing about our race this year is that we are before Saskatoon. So that their last race, the NASCAR race will be in Toronto, I think July 13th or something. Then they'll head out west. So I'll be able to use some of those teams earlier for promotional purposes. In the past, they've gone to Saskatoon first, raced, and then came here 2 days later, which gives them very little time to even fix their cars. So we can have them out here early for promotional purposes. So that's a really big event to have at the mall. And I think it'd be really cool when people drive by on 2A, they'll see all these NASCAR haulers parked at the mall and they'll stop by and see what's going on. So that's exciting. So this year, speaking of musical entertainment, local musicians have really suffered through the COVID, pandemic. It's been very difficult for them to have concerts and live concerts. So we're going to be on the Friday night at the track. We're going to have kind of a tailgate party under our hospitality tent. We have a country western band for the Friday night, and that'll sort of add to some of the fun for that night. We'll partner with the Westview RV now that they have the Willow Inn as well. So we'll have shuttles going back and forth because we can't camp at our racetrack. And we also have shuttle parking at the ag grounds. However, there's no overnight camping for that parking, but we will go to the Westview. And so that's a really nice partnership. So people can stay late, go to the tailgate party, have some appetizers and some probably Pinty's wings and have some fun there. And the big race will be on Saturday. So the proposed schedule for the big weekend, for our NASCAR weekend, is the picnic in the park from 11 to 1 on the Friday, the racing Friday night, followed by the country western band, and then the NASCAR Bear 300 on the Saturday night. There's lots of businesses in town that we partner with for this event. It's the Wetaskiwin Ag Society, the mall, the Reynolds Alberta Museum, Westview RV Park, A&W, Wetaskiwin Transcom Busing, Mitchell's Cafe, the hotel Siding 16 and Best Western, Canadian Tire, and Wetaskiwin Ready Mix. We're really committed to hiring local as well. We hire young students to work in our concession and souvenir room throughout the summer. For the past 5 years, we have received funding from the summer student program and have hired students locally to fill this position. We've also received some support from the Alberta Jobs Now program, and I've hired one local person for this for a social media position. I've also applied for 2 summer students this year, and we're waiting to hear back from that. Of course, the program will close in the next couple of days for applications. And so starting in May, last year we opened up in July. So this year, starting in mid-May, we'll start our stock car test drives, which are very, very popular. They're the NASCAR test drives. We'll probably see, along with that, and our Saturday night races, over 2,000 people every weekend to the racetrack. The Pinty's race weekend alone will bring in 15,000 visitors. So these visitors will spend money in Wetaskiwin on fuel, lodging, food, local shopping, vehicle repair, and much more. We also spend money all season within Wetaskiwin as we continue to improve our infrastructure at the racetrack. So on the next slide, you'll see my little sign-in booth there with a little window. And the next one is going to be our new sign-in booth, plus a bit of an office and some classroom for corporate facilities if they want to do a classroom meeting and then go out and do some test drives for corporate team building. Each year we do a Wheelin' Night, which is a dedication to the EMS and the protection, EMS and fire protection, and that group for the racetrack. And we do that throughout all Alberta. We invite them all out. Last year, we did a dedication to Darrell Valley, who was a firefighter in Edmonton, who did race at our track, and he passed away last year. And so we did a dedication race for him. So for the city of Wetaskiwin, we have installed a 12 by 24 billboard sign at the raceway. This sign promotes the city of Wetaskiwin by driving fans who attend our events to attend other events within Wetaskiwin. So the next slide shows the big sign, and it's a really nice sign. It's nice and big and bold, and it works really well. It's right in front of on turn 4 or turn 3, and it's very well visualized there at the racetrack. On the next slide, we were voted #1 favorite summer activity and #1 favorite summer event in Wetaskiwin. So that was pretty cool. So we, EIR in Wetaskiwin continues to grow, and our goal is to become one of the major attractions and destination points for people to travel to Wetaskiwin for. EIR has the ability to attract close to 100,000 new people to Wetaskiwin every year. They will spend outside money and contribute extensively to Wetaskiwin businesses, hotels, campgrounds, all these things. All of Wetaskiwin can enjoy the benefits of our marketing plan. The money that, thought maybe that was my signal for being over. I'm almost over. The money that we put into our marketing campaign will certainly benefit all of Wetaskiwin. In addition, by adding to the track's infrastructure, many other businesses in town will benefit, including Home Hardware, Canadian Tire Co-op, and more. So then we just have a few more slides with some photos. We do drifting, and then we have like children love NASCAR. They love being out there. It's one of our main focuses. And so we do need help from the city of Wetaskiwin. We're asking to help EIR grow and in turn grow the city of Wetaskiwin. We were hoping for a contribution of $10,000 to help us for this year. Thank you very much for your consideration.
Loretta, thank you. Any questions? Councillor Elliott.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Loretta, thank you very much for the presentation. I'm just wondering, when I looked at your sheets there, it said that Bayer donates $10,500.
Right. Mhm.
And you're asking us for $10,000. But when I looked through all of your presentation, I never saw the City of Wetaskiwin logo on any of those things. Would our logo be part of what you're going to do?
Oh, okay, okay, that's a very good point. So for our social media, we would definitely include the City of Wetaskiwin logo. The 12 by 24 sign is, of course, there at the racetrack
That's
too,
very nice,
which is
yes.
part of the package. But yes, we would, it wouldn't be the City of Wetaskiwin race. However, we could do the Bear 300 and then brought to you by the City of Wetaskiwin, which would be really nice because that way it would bring, tell people that we are in Wetaskiwin. That's a big marketing issue for us. Edmonton International Raceway, we sort of, we've added in Wetaskiwin. Now we sort of moved forward to EIR in Wetaskiwin, which gives Wetaskiwin the focal point of the racetrack.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Anything further? Loretta, thank you.
No, okay, thank you
Appreciate
very
your-
much for your time.
Next up, the Wetaskiwin Air Services. Welcome.
Hey, how's it going?
Good, how are you?
Very good, thank you. Sent a presentation this morning, thank you. You're lucky to be in here, it's terribly snowing outside, it's awful. So it's just wet and snowy, yeah. All right, so we are hosting a turn on your mic and sit a little closer. So we are hosting a 5 kilometer Run the Runway event May 15th this year. We've been told to expect somewhere between 300 and 700 participants for this style of event. The Wetaskiwin Triathlon gets about 200 as it is, and I think the 5K event's a little bit more approachable for most people out there. So we already have a couple groups involved. So we're donating to Wetaskiwin Health Foundation. We're using some of the Reynolds facilities for the race course. The Alberta Diabetes Foundation is bringing their raffle car. We've got a brewery coming, Show Your Colors Brewery. So it's very inclusive, awesome pineapple beer. It's fantastic. So the purpose of this event is to, first off, get people into our facility, new students for flight training. But anytime we do something at the airport, there's a significant overlap with the airport as a whole. So the Wetaskiwin Aerial Applicators is another very significant business at the airport. They're going to be promoting. We've already got some local clubs and some other local businesses that we're going to go through. I've organized events similar to this. And we've got car dealerships and home builders that are going to be involved with this as well. Next slide, please. So they ask $2,500 to cover operating costs and mitigate the risk of COVID. I just adjusted our budget based on what we're seeing in the race community. We've dropped entry fees by about 15% from the budget you guys have received. The break-even point from the event changes from about 175 people to just over 200 for the break-even. Yeah, so again, there's a huge overlap between us as an operator and the city. Next slide, please. So the proposed project, it is a fun run. We're basing it out of the apron just south of the terminal. We get do a nice loop up and around the runway, around the Reynolds Museum. The primary purpose is not to generate donations to local communities, but this event is going to be a not-for-profit event. 5K fun runs and professional race directing is a little bit beyond the scope of what Absolute Aviation Wetaskiwin Air Services does. So anything left over, we're donating to the Wetaskiwin Health Foundation. Next slide, please. So why are we doing this? Well, first off, there's limited knowledge about the airport. So we're trying to get more people into the community. more people into Wetaskiwin. We're trying to generate some new clients for ourselves. And then as a benefit, there's going to be a lot more people coming into Wetaskiwin that are going to be buying gas, visiting our references or our restaurants. And again, the Reynolds Museum is donating a couple prizes for the end of it. So we are cross promoting them as well. Introducing new people to the community. Well, a 5K fun run isn't going to get new people in here buying houses, but there's a significant number of people that work at airlines that use Wetaskiwin as a bedroom community. And we have a small discount for airline personnel trying to get them into Wetaskiwin. So hopefully we can see some new friendly faces. So economic effects. Each one of our students who does just the private pilot license, we do just under 1% of all new private pilot licenses in Canada, spends between about 14,500 and 20 grand with us, each individual student. And we do just under 1%, so about 20 or 30 private pilot licenses. A commercial pilot student spends about 50 to 70,000 bucks. We get clients in from both coasts and everywhere in between. I myself produce about 2% of all new instructor students every year. Just for the instructor rating, that's about another $10,000 spent. So if you're getting somebody in from Nova Scotia, Newfoundland, BC, which we do fairly regularly, they're paying for accommodations. Every single meal they eat, they're paying for a restaurant. They're here for 5 or 6 weeks. They're buying gas, they're renting cars. We recently had somebody in from Nunavut to receive the private pilot course. This style of event gets in people from all over the place. We don't have high event registration right now for our 5K, but 25% of our participants are coming from Calgary and other areas. So there you go. WASP, Wetaskiwin Air Service, employs about 10 people. The airport as a whole employs about 100. You know what? And we're into that pretty good range there for salary spread. Brings funds into the community. Next slide, please. So economic effects, this is a fairly common number you'll see about airport funding. $1 funding from the municipality into the airport equals $5 worth of economic activity in the city. So a lot of our clients come in from Leduc and Edmonton. They're all buying gas. They're spending the night. They're providing local employment here in Wetaskiwin. Yeah. So I got an awesome opportunity to run the race course last year. Most of the pictures you're going to see are from one of my runs. Oh, love it. It's fantastic. None of these images are retouched. This is the actual color, the real thing, what we saw there. It's just stunning, the property and the race course that we're going to go through. Most of these events, 5Ks, fun runs, marathons, whatever, mid to high income individuals, educated, excellent. The pilot community has a significant overlap with the running community in the personal backgrounds. So we're hoping to get a couple new clients out of this, lots of people into the community. All right, so the race course, top dead center, just underneath the bend for 47th Ave. We're going to start it on the apron. We're going to come out down south, out Delta, past the big expensive hangars where all the rich business owners own, out down and around the runway, out around Reynolds. So we're showing off our awesome new paved runway and new facility. Beautiful views, awesome farm fields, flat, fast, safe course. It's just incredible. Promote local. So once we get more of an idea of how many participants we're going to be getting, the plan is to get a couple food trucks out there, some car dealers, the local retailers, clubs, promote our flight training. And again, the museum's already involved with the fantastic use of their tour road. Next, please. So we were asked how this fits into the different segments of well, the Wetaskiwin economy. So arts and culture. We're really highlighting the fantastic facilities that the museum is supplying. We're going to see some really cool jets and pictures that they have just sitting out on the apron that not a lot of people get to see. Heritage, well, again, you get to see some of the awesome facilities here. Recreation, it's a fun run. And again, we're taking pride in our beautiful, beautiful community. Next slide, please. So this is the tour road around the museum. So we're tying to that strategic plan of the community by building the economy, getting new clients in here. And again, 5K isn't going to get a new citizen, but lots of overlap. Next slide, please. Measurable benefits, 200 to 1,000 participants. That's when our insurance caps out 1,000 participants. New clients, local businesses, economic activity. Where the money will be spent. So promoting printing, local shops. We've been using Taylor Printing for a print shop for quite a while. They're a little bit more expensive than other online shops, but we take pride in supporting local. Swag for the participants. Got to have a nice reward for people that are doing it. Prizes, insurance, safety courses, safety for the course, medicals, athlete experience, nutrition, chip timing. And again, the focus is not to donate to the museum or donate to the health foundations, but we don't want this to be a for-profit event. Next slide, please. All right, this is one of the fire bombers that's parked out in front of the museum. This is going to be on the race course. We also have just down behind this museum has a beautiful collection of all the fighter jets, and all the race participants will be running through them or running past them. Next, please. This is parked on the apron just in front of the museum. On the right is my favorite airplane. That's an F-86 Sabre and then a 104 Starfighter. And again, right past that. What a beautiful, fantastic view. Next, please. Again, the tour road, some of the cool trucks. Next, please. So we ask $2,500 towards the event. Any contribution would be a privilege. We're running the event regardless. We like to keep the costs low for the participants and the other advertisers. We're not charging a cent for anyone else to have a booth or display. If the museum wants more of a presence, if the museum downtown wants more of a presence, they're welcome to it as well. And again, the summary: promote local, safe, fun event, new people into Wetaskiwin, and then the event is going to have a fairly significant economic benefit on that day, on race day, and hopefully in our business as well. That's what I got. Y'all have any questions?
Thank you very much. Any questions? Councilor Nielsen.
Thank you. Through the chair. In your first presentation given to us, you show event staff.
Yep.
And so it appears that you are paying event staff.
Yep. Well, we have to pay a professional race director. A professional race director, we got quoted out as about 10 grand. So I'm going to do that myself. So that's going to cover my wage the day of. Plus, we have to have medical personnel on staff, and we don't have to, but we want to, just in case there's an issue there. I require somebody to do check-ins. Volunteers are going to get some swag as well. It takes about 1,000 hours to plan an event like this.
All right. And under entry fees.
Yep.
What are you looking at for charging entry fees?
So I've actually just dropped that. I think the peak rate's about $55 per user. There's all sorts of races that charge a lot more than that or a lot less than that, depending on what you're going for. The plan is to have a nice quality event with chip timing and give some decent rewards for the people who come out and participate.
Thank you.
Councilor Elliott. You guys can put your hands up at the same time.
Thank you for the presentation, Eric. Just a couple of questions. This is a fun run, not a competitive run?
So we're using chip timing for the run. So theoretically, they can use it towards timing for Alberta athletics, whatever. I think that adds a little bit more credibility to the race as a whole, but this is a fun run. Now, I've done 3 marathons, 2 half Ironmans, about a half dozen Olympic distance triathlons, and a couple more sprints. And I don't think I know where I stand or have ever stood provincially, but I typically target the races that have that chip timing because it's just a little bit more professionally run event. So it is a fun run, but we're going to approach this from a safe and professional standpoint.
What if you can't run fast and can only walk?
You got 50 minutes, 50 minutes to get off the runway. Past that, the airplanes are running.
Okay. Just through to Councillor Nielsen, when the Health Foundation has their triathlon, they pay for the timing equipment and the the professional expertise as well.
It's about $5 per person for time.
Great. And it does add a credibility with the triathlon. People use that towards their credits for their standings. So
Exactly.
but thank you very much, Eric.
Thank you.
Councillor Blatz.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Eric, for the awesome presentation. I just want to double check. This is different than the Wetaskiwin Health Foundation Triathlon, correct?
Yeah, so we are giving money to the Wetaskiwin Health Foundation after we break even. But yes, they're separate, completely separate events.
Absolutely. So the entry fee is what's going to be donated back to them.
After we pay the costs,
Yep.
That's what will be donated back.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Anything further? Eric, thank you. Appreciate your presentation. Next up is the Ag Society. Anyone? No? I'm sorry?
Angela's online.
Oh, welcome, Angela.
Hi. Can everybody hear me?
Absolutely.
Perfect. Okay, my name's Angela Banook. I'm a member of the Wetaskiwin Agricultural Society and one of the committee members for the Tractor Pull Committee in Wetaskiwin. So this year, so I guess I'll start with our ask. We're just asking for in-kind donations this year. So we're looking for a fire truck and fire personnel for the weekend, access to water, parking standards, advertising from the city of Wetaskiwin. This year, 2022 will be our third annual event. We had our first event in 2019 at the Ag Grounds, and it was hugely successful. 2020, I guess, we didn't have an event due to COVID, and we were able to have a second annual event in 2021. We try to stick to the same weekend every year, so it's usually around August 19th, 20th. This year, the dates are August 20th and 21st, which is a Friday, and a Saturday evening is when we have the pull, and then we save the Sunday in case it rains, so we can have the event on the Sunday. So in order for us, I guess I could start with what a tractor pull is if some of you aren't familiar. So a tractor pull encompasses, there's people that build modified trucks and tractors with a specific purpose just to attend tractor pulls. We also have farm tractors, and you can bring your 4x4 off the street to come and pull if you choose. It's run by a nonprofit society called the Prairie Pulling League. We're members from across Alberta, Saskatchewan, BC, Manitoba. Generally, our series starts in about May. The first event is usually in Manitoba, and then we work our way across Saskatchewan and into Alberta. We have about 8 events every year. And it's basically, there's up to, 40, 50 pullers that come to each event. And each of those pullers have a team of people that come along with them. So when we come to Wetaskiwin, there's, the teams plus all of their team members that are generally in town for anywhere from about 4 to 5 days, because we tend to go early to get set up and get organized and everything. In order for us to even have this event, we need to raise about $60,000 in sponsorship just to break even. That doesn't even include all of the in-kind and volunteer work and supplies that go into things like building up the track and actually putting on the event. We probably have over 100 volunteers on the weekend that come from Wetaskiwin and surrounding areas that come to help out. The local community has been amazing as far as sponsorship goes. The majority of our sponsorship does come from Wetaskiwin and area. The community is fantastic, and the amount of volunteers we get and the time that they put in and the job they do is wonderful. The pull is very well attended. There's approximately 4,000 people that attend over the weekend, and that includes the pulling teams that come from out of town and all the spectators that come from across the province to come to the event. All those teams are coming, they're here for 4 or 5 days, they're going to local businesses, they're eating in local restaurants, they're going to liquor stores, all that sort of thing. So it's a huge boost to the Wetaskiwin economy over the weekend. We have numerous other fundraising opportunities for other nonprofits during the weekend. Last year, we had about 5 other nonprofits that benefited, selling 50/50 tickets, selling pizza, stuff like that, that that we do every single year. Yeah, I don't know what else to say. I guess if you've never been to a tractor pull, in hindsight, I guess I should have done a little PowerPoint so you guys could actually see what goes on and see how much traffic comes in and how many people attend, because it is quite a sight. The first year we had it, we were pleasantly surprised and shocked at the response that we had. We weren't prepared, unfortunately, but we made a lot of changes in 2021 in order to make that flow smoother and have better parking and better just systems in place to handle the sheer volume of people that we have. I guess also over the weekend too, we do provide camping. We have beer gardens Friday and Saturday. We have live bands both nights. We have fireworks. There's food trucks there. There's entertainment for the kids. We have a monster truck that comes in and gives monster truck rides to the kids all weekend in the rodeo arena. And we're looking at a few other things for this year if we can fit them in. We'll have to see how much space we have to do other things like that. But yeah, that's really all I have to say. Any questions?
Angela, thank you very much for your presentation. Any questions? Councillor Elliott.
I'm sorry, I seem to be the one asking questions. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Angela, for the presentation. In addition to the in-kind donations that you're looking for, are you looking for a cash donation as well?
Oh, I wouldn't say no, that's for sure.
But you did, but that wasn't in your ask.
No, we didn't ask for cash this year. In 2019, I believe you guys did give us cash. We did not get it. We asked last year. We did not get anything last year. I believe last year we asked for cash and in kind. Yeah, so it's just in kind is all we're looking for.
Thank you very much.
We generally get enough sponsorship money from businesses that in that respect we're okay. It's the in-kind stuff that's a little bit harder to come by sometimes.
Anything further? Angela, thank you for your presentation.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
And finally, Prism Wetaskiwin. Yeah, I thought I saw Don. Welcome, Don.
You'll have to bear with me. I have notes here and notes on technology. Hello, everyone. Nice to see you all.
Don, can I ask you to make sure you're speaking into the mic?
Is that better?
Oh, way better.
Awesome. Okay, well, thank you for having me today. I just wanted to start by saying that originally, 3 years ago, we came to council as Saga Wetaskiwin. We have since split up into kind of two separate groups. And we have the other group had chosen to keep their relationship with Rock Soup, and me and other groups of people have decided to separate from that group. In saying that, we want to work with groups of people regardless of differences. And in leaving Saga, we had given them $1,800 in kind as a donation to carry on Pride for 2021. And so that, if you're looking at our financial statements that are included, is money that we did not receive any. There was no profit made at Pride this year, so we did not receive any money back. And it was also decided by that Saga group that if there were any profits, they would go to Rock Soup. So that is an explanation of a huge loss of our last dollars. So I wanted to start by saying we are an LGBTQIA2S positive group in Wetaskiwin, and that's hard for me to say. So I can only imagine how hard that is for you guys to say and understand. So that's why we want to be here. We want to get out, we want to educate the community, and we want to build our group of allies and change how things are done here in Wetaskiwin, or continue changing how things are done here in Wetaskiwin. So we have, our project is a number of activities and things that we'll do in the community throughout the year. We are just getting started with a board, or starting to put together a board and hoping to form a nonprofit, an official nonprofit society, which is something we've never done. So this is our hopes for the next year, to be registered and set up as a society. So that is one of the things we will use some of the money for, is the legal parameters and all that stuff that goes along with that. One of our biggest events is Pride and crosswalk painting. So we have plans for the crosswalk painting this year to be held on June 24th, and that is the Friday night. And then the Saturday night, or the Saturday morning and afternoon, evening, we would have the Pride celebration in Diamond Jubilee Park on June 25th. Of course, for this event, we will invite the entire community to join, including city councilors, employees of the city, and anyone who would like to join. Along with Pride this year, we've kind of sat around and realized that in the local area, literally from Edmonton to Red Deer for sure, and from the Rockies to the Saskatchewan border, this area that we encompass, we're the only rural Pride, the only group that's putting on a Pride. So we want to advertise this immensely, and we think that we can draw a good number of people to this event, which of course will bring money into town. So that is why we put our ask up to $5,000 again. Other things that we want to do, we want to have community engagement activities at Waterworks Studios. My friend Bill Tozer runs Waterworks Studios, and he's going to rent us a room and a space, and we can have a variety of activities there for the youth and really any age people who want to come in and hang out and be in a safe environment, safe space. We want to put up a tree at the Festival of Trees in Manluck Center, a pride tree. We'll figure out what that becomes with our group, but that's something we want to do to be part of the community. Again, getting our voice out, having people see and talk and respond. Another thing that we would really like to do is put on a drag show. We'll have a drag show probably at Pride, but during the year, I know Slick's Bar, I work well with Candace and the Taylors themselves, and they're very excited to have us there for a drag show. Our last drag show was very successful. We made over $600 for Saga that day. So that was really excellent. That was our pre-COVID celebration, which we didn't realize at the time, of course. And I've already started working with the Millet GSA. We have a meeting today. I want to look into working with some Musquecheese groups that I know, Chevy Rabbit and other people out in the Musquecheese area. We'd like to work with them, save resources, share resources, do that kind of thing, community building. And I'm also on the Diversity and Inclusion Committee of Wetaskiwin, chair that group. And we want to work together with that group to community engagement activities and really educate people. You know, it's been amazing in the last 3 years, 4 years that I've been doing this. It's just getting that education piece out and having people who have heard my presentation and they understand the LGBTQIA2S positive and what that all means. So that's kind of where we're at this year with what we want to do with our project and getting things on the go. So how will the project impact the community? The only thing that we don't fit in with your support pillars or the town pillars is infrastructure. Although I'm sure if you gave us some shovels, we could probably get out and do something for you guys, volunteer activity. So arts and culture, Pride is a celebration of LGBTQIA2S positive culture. So we're painting Pride crosswalks, we're having a drag show at Pride, we're gonna have live music as always, balloon animals, face painting, family-friendly games. It's gonna be a nice recreational kind of activity. Again, with recreation, all activities are by the definition of recreation, recreational. What we're doing is engaging the community and getting people out to do fun stuff. Heritage will be part of creating a new chapter of Wetaskiwin's heritage and continuing that building of inclusivity in Wetaskiwin. The environment, we do care about the environment, and we want to make sure that anytime that we are in a space, at Waterworks, at Diamond Jubilee Park for Pride and anything else, that we're making sure we have garbages, that we have recycled things, that we use compostable materials and all of that kind of thing, kind of in line with the city's policies on that. For community pride, our entire project includes activities attempting to include and unite as many members of the community as possible. We want to invite everyone out. We want Pride to be a family activity, not necessarily as extravagant and as sometimes Pride is seen as inappropriate. We want to take that out of Pride. We want to not shock poor Mr. Nielsen when he comes to join us at the crosswalk. But we want people to have a fun time and just realize that the LGBTQ community is no different than any other community, right? We have our quirks, we have our things, and we just like everyone. We'd like to be a part of this community and feel a greater part of this community, and we would love the community to join us in our celebration. So building the community, we believe strongly in educating, advocating, and working for all community members and collaborating with all of those groups that want to continue this inclusion, that want to continue education and want to continue making Wetaskiwin a better place. Building the economy, hosting the events in the community, as I said. Edmonton's, I'm not sure what Edmonton is doing this year. I haven't even heard. I don't know what Red Deer's doing. I don't know what Calgary's doing. We have this huge regional area that we can put on a really amazing celebration, and we can do some really awesome stuff. So that's what we're hoping to do. And we're hoping to bring money into the community, bring people into the community. People are going to buy things. People are going to get gas. People are, maybe if they come from far enough away, they'll spend a night in the hotel, things like that. Building strong government. As an organization, PRISM's main mission is to engage with the greater community of Wetaskiwin in meaningful, inclusive activities, which is part of your government mandate and your city's mandates. So just to, I did leave the detailed budget. I won't go over that, but I just wanted you to know how we did plan to spend the money. And we wanted to put more money into advertising this year. We really realized that it is really about advertising, as we've heard from all the groups that are presenting today. Getting that word out, getting it out in different ways and different forms of media is really a way we're going to find success. Today we also have meetings with local banks, hoping to gain financial resources. We're not just depending on the city. We're looking to the community for further support. But we do realize that you have always been a big support to Saga and to hopefully PRISM, and that we would like to continue that relationship. We have a wonderful, and I think we've built a wonderful relationship with the city, and we would love to continue that relationship. We're excited to make PRISM Wetaskiwin an integral part of this community for the betterment of its LGBTQIA2S positive community and for everyone in this community. So we humbly ask for your support, and we thank you for your time today and for everything. And do you have any questions?
Don, thank you very much. Is there a question? Councillor Nielsen.
I don't know if you can shock this old guy, Don, but
I've done it enough already.
first off, I would like to commend you for the work you've done in our community to support and advance diversity and inclusion in our community. So thank you for all the work you've done there. Currently, I'm interested in knowing what your current membership is in terms of numbers.
Okay. Our current numbers are, we are in the process. Literally, it's me and Lisa, my friend Michael, Greg's gonna help out a little bit. Gabby is involved. Karen is kind of involved. We've got some people from the museum and our old group that used to run out of the museum. I'm hoping to communicate with them and work, but we really are in our infancy as an organization, being honest.
Okay.
We have lots of stuff we want to push forward through and get through, but we're at that point where we can't really expand, and we've got $250 in our bank account. we really want some support, and they're asking for some support.
And as a new organization in the community, I'm curious as how you differentiate yourself from your former entity. So I'm not talking about their affiliation with another organization, but how do you differentiate PRISM in this community? So are we duplicating? I'm going to use the word services, probably wrong choice of words, but how are you different?
I think that what I see the other group being is and I'm not trying to make politics, I'm not trying to build, it seems more of a social gathering point. And that we as a group, I see myself and my role and our group's role as working with the policy and advocating and the education and the social aspect part of it too, but the big planning and the moving and the shaking. That's where I see our organization going.
Thank you, John.
Whereas not just a social club to hang out, but a group that works with community groups, that goes out and educates, that is willing to go out and engage the community and encourage the community to.
Thank you.
Anything further? Thank you, Don. Appreciate your presentation. I understand now we do have somebody from the museum here.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I have to declare a pecuniary interest, so I will be leaving.
Okay. Sure. Is it a check?
Yeah, well, we wish, yeah.
Oh.
We're a little old school, so you get hard copies. Thank you, Deputy Mayor Billingsley, councillors, city administration, and fellow presenters. We apologize for our tardiness. We won't give you the details, but there was ill children and exploding puppies. But all we can tell you is there was a mess. So we respectfully begin by acknowledging that we gather on Treaty 6 territory and Métis homeland and honor the Indigenous nations and diverse peoples whose history and culture have remained resilient for thousands of years and continue to strengthen and nurture our community's identity during this extraordinary age of adversity. In these challenging times, we would also like to express our sincere appreciation to Wetaskiwin Council, administration, and our residents for striving to maintain the well-being and union of our community. Preserving harmony is never harmonious, but our Wetaskiwin spirit of coming together will persevere with continued compassion and understanding. This is the city we share. Now down to the nitty-gritty. Forgive us if I do not effectively articulate our case, but please keep in mind that between myself and my board member, we do not have a doctorate in classics or political science. So we are here today to ask for a renewed contract with the city and continued financial aid. One that has existed since our foundation, that was first initiated by City Council over 40 years ago. That contract since 2015 included annual funding of $50,000, for which we have been grateful to receive. However, this fiscal agreement does not currently reflect our level of commitment, investment in ongoing city projects, community programs, and the rate of inflation. It is to the credit of our forebears and past museum volunteers that we have been able to expand our services and share responsibilities for multiple high-profile projects with the city and surrounding organizations. These include, but are not limited to, Alberta Culture Days, Canada Day, Remembrance Day, Taste of Wetaskiwin, Peace, Care and Ceremony, No Stone Left Alone, Sisters in Spirit, Canada's Agricultural Day, Orange Shirt Day, Powwow Okachin, the Origins Traveling Exhibit, and Christmas Joy for Seniors. These and other programs, like our immigration exhibit, have kept money circulating within our community. Over 60% of our funds have been spent on the following local businesses: Co-op, Nicor, TKO, Taylor's Printing, Floors Now, Mueller's, Bueller Corp, MC Networks, WannaSign, Fully Promoted, Busy Bee, R4 Mechanical, Hardy Colburn Insurance, Family Pharmacy, Neo's Bakery, Cobra, Lanco Glass, Imagine Graphics, Canadian Tire, Tim and Chris Olson Snow Removal, No Frills, and Kel Kenny Contracting. And this is not a finite list over the past year. And if you haven't noticed, we also offer advertising. Monies, resources, staff, and volunteer hours have also been distributed in perpetuity with our fellow partners on cooperative projects. Some of those partners include FCSS, Delcon Visual Arts, Super Value Liquor, Glenn's Grill, the Agricultural Society, Wetaskiwin Legion Branch 86, the Wetaskiwin Art and Crafts Center, Wetaskiwin Theater Society, Literacy Center, Norquest College, and Wetaskiwin BGC. By fostering these mindful alliances, who all have demonstrated that their initiatives have the best interests of its residents at heart, we are creating success stories. And we could not be more grateful for their collective efforts on securing the wellness of Wetaskiwin. Under the advisement of City's Economic Development Department and the Leduc and Wetaskiwin Business Chamber, we have diversified our services, business methods, and mindset by partnering with Beans Coffee Bar and Bistro to offer their brand to clients on Main Street. We have also absorbed a retiring and closing Millet Wool Shop business to feature local tangible heritage and expand our customer clientele. These proposed revenue generators have enriched existing local businesses and have ensured our own survival. But they come at a high price in venture capital. It may have come to everyone's attention, or perhaps not, that over the past year, we have changed our museum's name to add the term center, making us the Wetaskiwin District Heritage Museum Center. This is to better encapsulate our services. We offer affordable or free space to other non-for-profits and agencies at their convenience. To name a few of those: local figure skating club, Wrangler riders, book clubs, and knitting clubs. We are often approached by entrepreneurs who are launching or advertising to sell their product. Earhart Creations, Sandy Ratch, and Pets with Paws are a few of the private sellers that are endorsed in our gift shop, not to mention hosting Indigenous art and craft markets for individuals seeking a free selling platform. One of the highest forms of praise is when your community allocates responsibilities that you are proud to accept. Since the closure of the Visitor Information Center, we have been a resource for citizens and travelers asking for referrals to local businesses, social services, and recommendations of tourism and hospitality. 1 in 3 people through our doors and over the phone conduct this form of welcome solicitation, which is a testament of our public trust and our measure of accessibility. Our persistent outreach has transformed into a coming together, and people now seek us out to either consult, assist, work with, or lead a common vision. The vulnerable sector groups like disenfranchised clients and the LGBTQIA2S+ groups have come to rely on us for a safe space, programming, professional mentorship, and recommendations for counseling facilities. This is something for which we have been provincially recognized for our quality of service and our merit by the Alberta Museums Association. In 2019, the Alberta Museums Association kindly granted us the Leadership Award of Sustainability for building organizational vibrance, and most recently, in 2021, the Robert R. Janes Award for Social Responsibility on actively creating change. We are optimistic that we can continue to offer these and other services to our friends, businesses, esteemed partners, and prospective allies to sustain health, wellness, and our shared local achievements. Ultimately, the city would have to create its own department to cover the responsibilities that we have been asked to perform and have undertaken through the requests of our community. But instead, you can invest in an existing institution and society that A, has its own museum and programming, B, 2 qualified museum workers, and C, a proficient and valuable asset, albeit a doctor, at your behest, who I promise has not paid me to say that. And finally, a place that has already garnered an established public trust, a challenge where the city sometimes struggles. All of these resources come at a fraction of the cost it would take to create something new under the direct auspices of the city. Through a written contract agreement, it would empower the city and the museum to fully align our strategies for a mutually beneficial relationship to serve our community. Without a contract, we cannot commit to any long-term plans. We function on an annual basis and depend on the pulse of the community. As you know, capital creates capital. In the case of the museum, your $50,000 in the past has generated revenue through matching grants, donations, gaming proceeds, and fundraisers. Essentially, we have turned your $50,000 into over $200,000. Imagine what we could do with $75,000. This is an opportunity for council to help save and safeguard the future of this institution via a contract and equitable funding, and not lose yet another or close a cultural entity. Together, we can define our unique identity, give us more reasons to celebrate one another, and promote our positive qualities in order to combat the slandering propaganda that plagues the media. We endeavor to never say no when we're approached by our community for help, and we earnestly hope we never have to. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Questions? I do.
Thank you.
Your financial statement is as of December 31st of 2020. Do you have an interim statement available to us for the year 2021 or anything like that? Because this information is over a year old.
We have not yet been audited yet by this year, and our accountant is still processing that information. And thank you for your question. We could send you something within the past 2 months, that is for sure, Councillor Billingsley.
Thank you. You presented to us a contract. Are you looking, like, this is something separate than like,
so 3 years ago, through the agency of a past manager, the contract basically was not re-signed. That contract has existed over 40 years. And 3 years ago, it was not renewed. And that was not through a decision of council. That was through someone's private decision. We were recommended to approach council through a grant and aid process. And we have been here for the past couple of years asking for financial support and your endorsement.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything further? Well, thank you very much for the presentation.
Thank you
Appreciate it.
very much for understanding our tardiness.
Hey, no problem. We're going to take a 11-minute break. Welcome back. Next on the agenda, we have, what do we have? I'm sorry. We have the Diversity and Inclusion Task Force. Paul, you're presenting that? Who was?
Good afternoon, Council. Just if you wouldn't mind, just let me step out and see if I can find Mr. Don Haywood. He was here to present on behalf of that as well.
Well, we can. Did you find him? No? Okay, then let's move on to the next.
Sorry.
Or do you want to speak to it?
I could, yeah.
Okay.
Good afternoon, council. I have scheduled regular updates from the Diversity and Inclusion Task Force. Don Haywood is the chair of that committee, and they have been meeting regularly in January to have a presentation and a request to council for consideration of this year's 2022 budget. And so they have been working with a expert in this area, Wade from Northwest College, and he has been taking them and leading them through a process. And so I know that they're looking at doing more stakeholder consultations in the community moving forward as 2022, with the eventual plan to hopefully do more of a strategy or a plan on how to tackle diversity and inclusion in the community. So that's my short and sweet version. I know Don would have had something a little bit more lengthier, and I think he just forgot. So I will make sure to grind his gears next time I see him, and we'll conclude my presentation.
Thank you very much. Is there any questions? Okay, well, hearing none.
Councillor Billingsley?
Yes.
I'm sorry, I am not feeling very well, and if I have a very sore throat, but I would just like to add, our last meeting went very, very well. And we're working on things going forward. And at the end of last week, I got a call from a couple of our board members saying that we were not really paying enough attention to one certain aspect of our community. And I totally agree. And that is, we've been spending a lot of time with cultural, but we haven't been spending a lot of time with people with disabilities. And I did get a hold of Mr. Haywood, and there is going to be a presentation at the next meeting. So we're going to be moving forward with that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Don,
Yes,
welcome.
I apologize for being late.
That was Kevin.
Yes. I have no idea what I'm supposed to do.
Do you have any reports or updates as far as the Diversity and Inclusion Task Force?
I just, as what Kevin had said, I have spoken with Misty Sackman, and her worker Sharon are going to do a presentation for our group at the next meeting, and we are going to work with them to include more in our community engagement activities in the community.
Wonderful. Any other questions for Dawn? Hearing none, now you can leave. Thank you, Dawn. Appreciate it.
Apologies.
No, I appreciate your help. Next, we have a delegation with Project Forest.
All right.
Oh, and we have, is it Mike?
Yeah. Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Before Project Forest begins the presentation, I want to give you a brief introduction about how this project came to be. The Urban Forest Initiative that I initially presented to Council in Montgomery Park a couple years ago was just the start of the environmental action that I wanted to see in our community. Over the past few months, I've also been thinking about how Wetaskiwin can take the lead on reconciliation as the calls to action loom in the back of my mind for what we can do as a municipality. How can trees and reconciliation go together? This is a question I pondered in a meeting with Mike from Project Forest after we met at Alberta Municipalities Convention. We brainstormed ideas over the course of an hour, and within 10 days, a presentation is now on the table. A project that ties together reconciliation, climate action, and community pride. It is with great excitement that I hand the reins over to Project Forest to give you the overview on this plan.
Good morning, everybody. Can you hear me okay over here?
Certainly can.
Fantastic. Thanks so much, Gabby, for the introduction, and thanks to Council for having us here this morning. Karen has also done some pretty fantastic magic behind the scenes. So just a thank you to Karen for getting everything set up. And it looks like we are ready to go. When Gabby and I met each other at the AUMA conference, it was a pretty cool conversation as I kind of introduced myself and Project Forest and the types of things that we're able to do. And we just knew we were going to have to meet up again in the new year and see if we could come up with a proposal or an opportunity to work together. And it looks like we have something pretty special on the table here. Next slide, please. Today, we're going to chat about a few things. And also my colleague, Angela McKinnon, is on the call this afternoon. She's based in Calgary and I'm based in Edmonton. Today, we're going to talk about the background of Project Forest, some of the challenges that we help our traditional partners solve, talk about the right tree in the right place and why we do certain things, even from a genetics perspective. We'll give you guys an overview of the projects that we got completed last year. We're still a rather new organization. We launched October 2020, but we did have some pretty incredible success considering we launched during COVID, and 95% of my presentations and partner engagement has been like this virtually. I'm going to chat about the differences between rewilding and ecological reconciliation. They're really important to note, and will tie in really nicely to what we're here to talk about today as a potential healing forest somewhere within the city of Wetaskiwin. Then we'll talk about the two different project areas Gabby and I have kind of collaborated on working on, and then how do we fund the work and what will the work cost? Next slide. So when we started Project Forest, it came through a number of different phone calls. I'd say in October 2020, I was wearing two hats as the general manager of reclamation and forestry at a company called Tree Time, and we decided to launch Project Forest. But prior to that, Tree Time Services, which you'll see in the next slide, is a marketing agent for 5 different nurseries across the province in the coast to coast next gen region, or the next gen co-op presentation. And we produce 50 to 60 million trees per year. So when you do a Google search, every single time will pop up, and people have been calling us for a long, long time asking, hey, Mike, how can we give back to the environment, buy some trees and plant them in the forest? And it just wasn't really a possibility, which we'll talk about here in the future. That's just a little bit of background about where we came from. ESG, environmental social governance, corporate social responsibility, and corporate carbon reduction are the 3 main challenges we help our corporate partners solve. And by using Project Forest to create forests and, you know, all the benefits that are associated with trees and communities of trees, we can really help folks meet their strategies on these 3 fronts. Next slide, please. Now, I did allude to coast-to-coast reforestation. As I said, 60 million trees per year, 5 nurseries across the province, 2 around Smoky Lake, 1 in Bonnyville, and 2 around Medicine Hat. Tree Time was founded by Larry LaFleur up in the top left corner. He used to work for the federal and provincial governments, and throughout his career, he's been responsible for deploying over 1.5 billion trees. And then the head silviculture forester, he's also on the Project Forest Board of Directors, Scott Fermaniak, responsible for 700 million. So to say that we are surrounded by people who've been here and done this before and been doing it for a long, long time is somewhat of an understatement. And I wanted to kind of tie together Project Forest, Tree Time, and Coast to Coast just for council here to kind of understand when partnering with Project Forest, you're getting the expertise of 2 additional organizations to ensure that your projects are executed flawlessly and that we are using the right genetic material combined with our significant experience to make sure the job gets done right the first time. Next slide, please. So just some brief background, silviculture, the art and science of growing trees. And one thing we really want to highlight is the right tree in the right place. I'm going to talk a bit about the 2 billion tree program here shortly, and that's one of the things they keep talking about in all the presentations and literature that we see. So I wanted to highlight in the presentation here this morning. Long story short is I cannot collect seed from the Edmonton area and deploy it around Grand Prairie or Fort McMurray, literally against the law. There's 92 different seed zones in the province. And when I'm planting on public land, it's actually very controlled. And there's a lot of legislation in place to make sure industry is following the rules. Project Forest is typically planting on private land. That said, myself as a professional forester, I'm bound to a code of ethics, and we are always making sure we're following the seed zone legislation and using the best trees. Always. Next slide, please. It's also important to understand producing plants is complicated. One of the more complicated ones at the bottom of this list is something called low bush cranberry. It is collected when we don't have a seed source between August 1st and the end of September. And then seed stratification times half a year. Stratification is just a fancy word for breaking seed dormancy. Then it takes another 170 days to grow the plant. So when we're coming up with revegetation plans, it's really important to understand the timing of when the seed is ready to be collected, how long it takes to break stratification, and then how long it takes to grow a plant. All this comes together when we're coming up with execution plans and timelines and everything else that we need to transition disturbed landscapes. And in most of the cases of Project Forest, it's non-productive agriculture land back into a forest. Next slide, please. So as I said, we launched October 2020, and we had a pretty amazing journey so far. As again, the 2 billion tree program, our 2 projects that were completed last year were both funded by the 2 billion tree program. And we've been recognized as one of 20 organizations across the country that's been given access to the 2022 Direct Award Program. There's also a competitive long-term tender coming out that's due February 17th, and that's an important part of what we're going to be chatting about this morning. But important to know, the feds and NRCan deems Project Forest as a significant organization capable of executing large-scale projects. In total, last year, we planted a little over 162,000 seedlings, and we started the process of restoring 89 hectares of land. We've secured over 20 project partners, and we funded 3 projects fully. Next slide, please. This is an overview of everybody that stepped up to the plate and became a Project Forest partner. I think it's really important to recognize these individuals. It's an important part of our platform. And without help from the Canadian business community, the work that Project Forest does just is not possible. And then case in point, our biggest partner by far is the federal 2 billion tree program. And I wanted to make sure that was highlighted there. We have some of the largest organizations in the world, and I always like to point out some of the smallest as well. Autumn Goose Coaching on the top left there. Kimberly Schmidtke lives in Saskatoon. She has a one-woman coaching show, and sustainability is really important to her. So she became a Project Forest partner and was responsible for coming in as a bronze partner here last year. Next slide, please. Now, the first project that we executed, as I said, 3 projects were fully funded. Our goal was hopefully to sell out Golden Ranches. Golden Ranches is 55 hectares, scheduled for 110,000 trees. And not only did we sell Golden Ranches, we sold out the one we're going to talk about next, the Swan River Ecological Reconciliation Project. And we brought on another partner, Pipestone Energy, which will be planting 18,000 trees this spring. What's really interesting about Golden Ranches, and I just want to highlight some of the cool work we've done before we move on, is it's located in the UNESCO Beaver Hills Biosphere. It's on the south shore of South Cooking Lake, 30 minutes east of Edmonton. And there's only 18 biospheres in the country and 719 in the world. And for us to be able to work on one of those so close to home was really special. Now, these pictures you can see on the screen this morning are our corporate planting partners. And at certain partnership levels, our corporate partners have the ability to come out to site and plant trees. And this human story is really, really important. And I always like to kind of talk about Nan, who you see there in the middle. I do a presentation. I tell everybody about how to plant a tree, where to plant a tree, and the right technique. Nan was listening very intently, and then she took about 10 or 15 minutes to get that first tree in the ground. And when she was done, she called me over and said, "Hey, Mike, how does this look?" I'm like, "Looks fantastic." And she got her phone out. She took a selfie, and she had huge smiles, said, "Mike, that's my first tree." So we made sure to grab a picture of it. And I just like to talk about the opportunities that our partners give to their staff. Nan works at a Ace liquor store in Edmonton. She's selling beer behind the till, and her employer brought her out that day and gave her an opportunity to put a tree in the ground and learn a little bit more about nature. really rewarding experiences. And it's really important to note and distinguish that Project Forest is so much more than just planting trees and so much more than just creating forests. We're making real meaningful impacts in people's lives immediately and on day one. And just before we move on, just to quickly talk about rewilding, we're taking these non-productive agricultural lands and we're creating habitat for the critters, and we're creating forests forever through permanence. That's something that maybe I can answer in the questions later, just so we're a little bit mindful of time. But this area is owned by 4 different conservation groups, and it will remain a forest forever after we transition it. And that's really, really important for what we do. Next slide, please. Because when we start talking about the impact that our forests make, we wouldn't be able to tell our partners or the Canadian public that Golden Branches is going to remove over 65,000 metric tons of carbon dioxide over the lifespan of that forest. And 1 ton of carbon dioxide, metric ton, represents that house you see in the bottom corner. Without permanence, we can't guarantee that our seedlings become a forest, and we have processes and contracts in place that ensure that that's going to happen. As well, there's a significant amount of biomass created. Over 17,000 tons per hectare will be created as we transition this area from something that was producing marginal barley last year, that will become a forest. Really, really cool work. And of course, the seedlings that were planted out there on the top right. Next slide, please. Now, our second project area, and probably the one that Gabby and I started talking about and got really excited about, is when I told her about the Project Forest Swan River Ecological Reconciliation Project. You can see in that map of Alberta, Swan River is located on the south shores of Slave Lake near the town of Canuso. And we've been working with the group for about 2 years now, and we were able to come up with a program to start the process on 34 hectares of land, planting over 56,000 seedlings last year. Now, there's some important differences in the end objectives and some additional tasks that Swan River has placed upon us. Next slide, please. So when we are talking about working with our Indigenous partners, not only are we transitioning these landscapes from their current state, and this one in particular was literally stagnant. It had been grazed for about 15 years and then was just sitting idle. So it was a perfect land parcel to start this transition process on. Not only are we planting trees and restoring the land, we're also been tasked with reintroducing traditional food back onto the landscape. In the spring of 2023, we're going to plant 13,000 trees consisting of mountain ash, Saskatoon, strawberry, bearberry, and one other one, which I apologize, escapes my mind at the moment. But this is really, really important. This whole process kind of started when Swan River First Nation funded something called a food gathering study. So really trying to get traditional foods back onto the landscape and getting their community members to use them more to help offset some of the health impacts that the Western diet really has created on their community members. Now, as we start to transition this land and get the medicinal and food-bearing plants growing, we're going to create some really, really opportunistic spaces to transfer knowledge. The Swan River Band office is only 15 minutes away. So the elders and the school children are going to be able to come out here, look for very important plants, and then start sharing this knowledge going back and forth. Only 15 minutes away. They won't have to drive 5 hours down the highway, go for a walk into the forest and try and find the plants that they're looking for. We're going to have known locations and areas to share this knowledge. Now, as this happens organically, traditional land use opportunities will be restored on the landscape. And that's also super important as the people start to interact with this land again, the way that their ancestors did, it becomes much, much more meaningful. And in particular, kind of in the northeast corner, you can see that those fluffy trees are balsam poplar. There's a burial site up there. And community members have been buried there for quite a long time. And as this land transitions back into a forest, it's going to have significant impact to the community members. We've also been asked to share the knowledge. Angela and I are templating this, and we've been asked to share it with as many First Nation communities in Alberta and hopefully Canada one day. And we've been able to leverage 50% of this funding through the federal 2 billion tree program. And as you're going to see, there's potential for even higher than 50% funding on the project that we're talking about here this morning. Next slide, please. So I really want to highlight the differences between rewilding and ecological reconciliation. And as I'm chatting, please feel free to read the text in the bottom left-hand corner, which is, what Dustin Twins' definition of success would be. And you can see Dustin in the top right-hand corner there wearing the Oilers hat. We hosted a webinar a number of months ago through the Environmental Service Association of Alberta. And I do encourage everybody to go check that out. It's about a 75-minute webinar, but really quite impactful and emotional. So the differences between rewilding and ecological reconciliation. When I'm working with the conservation groups, we're rewilding the land. We're bringing back trees and reestablishing landscape function that hasn't been there for a number of years. We're creating habitat for the animals, we're cleaning the air, removing carbon from the atmosphere, improving the soil quality and improving the water. And we're creating forests that are going to last generations to come. But when we start using the word rewilding, it is deemed offensive in some Indigenous circles. The term wild itself is the issue. And while myself, I'm not of Indigenous heritage and I don't know much about the language, I've been told, and a lot of these are the stories that Dustin's been so kind to share with me over time, is there are a lot of very technical and very old words in Indigenous language that demonstrate an intimate understanding of the relationships between people, the forest, the animals, and how they all work together. Those words wouldn't exist without deep, strong traditional knowledge. So we've been asked to remove the word rewilding from our conversations and in turn use the word ecological. And where does reconciliation come from? Again, Dustin's been kind enough to share a lot of these stories with me. And throughout a lot of the forested regions of Canada, when the First Nation reserves were created years ago, the federal government highly incentivized these groups to transition to agriculture, sometimes required them to. And as the lifestyles changed from hunter-gatherers to becoming agriculture-based societies, they moved a lot less around the landscape. And that allowed the federal government to know where people would be. And unfortunately, the next step is then the schools started to pop up. So in the words of Dustin again, true reconciliation is repairing the land that should have never been damaged in the first place. Next slide, please. So Angela, if you could take over here and tell us what is a healing forest?
Yeah, Mike, absolutely. So good morning, everyone. I'm Angela McKinnon with Project Forest. And, when we talk about a healing forest, it's, research has proven that the healing powers of nature have shown a variety of benefits for our physical, mental, and social health. So it provides an effective and easy way to avoid stress, anxiety, burnout, and depression, as well as reducing their ill effects. So connecting with nature boosts our body's immunity, energy levels, and healing ability. It can improve our mood, sleep, memory, as well as focus. So nature also has a soothing influence on our relationships and emotional well-being. But what could a healing forest actually look like? And how can we start sowing the seeds of peace, kindness, and health in the world around us? Let me just preface by saying that a healing forest is whatever the community members using this forest needs it to be, and each one may be unique. This is where meaningful consultation with local Indigenous groups is so important. And the only condition is that this forest is created and used in the spirit of reconciliation, healing, shared understanding, and respect. So with that, we're very excited and feel privileged to see what a healing forest means to you and how it will grow. Next slide. I found this beautiful poem that I just want to share with you all. Healing forest. Come home to the forest, where time goes slow and the breath is mellow, where thoughts find rest and calm comes to nest. Come home to the woods, to be friends with the trees and listen to the breeze, to wander through trails and mend your sails. Come home to nature, when your heart is hurting or your soul needs healing. When something feels wrong or you just need a place to belong, the forest awaits. Come home, be healed. Next slide.
Thanks, Angela. That's fantastic. Now, council members, I bet you're wondering why you're on the screen. This really does come all down to the community members of Wetaskiwin, the Indigenous community, and the folks around the table here this morning. And as Gabby and I and Angela have been working on this, we need to have a discussion if we're going to move forward, where to do the work. And two options have come up: Peace Hills Park, or maybe some pockets of reconciliation around town. Next slide, please. So the pockets of reconciliation is a really cool idea. These are the maps that have been provided to us. And there's opportunities for engagement, there's opportunities for inclusion, and there's opportunities for connectivity here. I am not 100% certain how far away these specific land parcels are, but if possible, some sort of interpretive trail between them, whether a bike trail or a walking trail of some sort, could be established, whereas we transition from one area to the next, there's learning lessons, there's signs, there's interactive displays, and of course, food-bearing plants and shrubs. Create areas to transfer knowledge, create areas for ceremony, as you see kind of in the picture in the bottom right. And then I did include this picture from Savannah, Georgia. As you can see, there's about 23 different square parks throughout their city. My wife and I, a number of years ago, traveled there, and we went and saw all of them. So when communicated publicly, I truly believe people will travel and really try and take in this experience to learn more. As Angela's impactful words reading that poem, when you need a place to get away from it all, having something in your backyard could really help. Next slide, please. Oh, back one, thank you. And then Peace Hills Park, another opportunity here. I want to say, I was told this is about 47 hectares. So there's some significant opportunity here to create a contiguous forest, design it with community members, and then really build the information out starting from the ground level. As you see here, I've included some important photos. Bottom left, what a healing forest can bring. You know, Turtle Island we can build from the bottom up, and Mother Earth, all really important concepts when designing something like this. And then, I mean, I know I'm a little bit short on time, but when municipalities come and together and build natural infrastructure like this, it gets recognition. I mean, I just wanted to share this CTV news clip about what the city of Winnipeg did and how the news kind of picked up on it to communicate to the public. So Karen, if you could please play that video.
Lost to residential schools, Winnipeg will soon be home to Canada's second healing forest. Classrooms can come and do some land-based learning. When people can come and share stories, come together, heal, and reconcile. The details are announced today at St. John's Cathedral. The purpose of the healing forest is to provide a place of peace and contemplation. The forest will also act as an outdoor classroom, as you heard, where students from local schools will learn and link to the land. Creation. This is a space where schools can have access to that experience, and hopefully not just here, but they'll take it back to their school. Things that are occurring, that continue occurring, that already exist in the school. Construction begins in March at St. John's Park. The healing forest will be formally opened this summer as part of celebrations marking the 125th anniversary of St. John's Park.
Thanks, Karen. Next slide, please. So, really important question in all types of these conversations is how will we fund the work and what will it cost? So as mentioned earlier in the presentation, Project Forest is a recognized program within the 2 billion tree program. Now, standard applications can receive a maximum of 50% funding, and all of our projects to date have received this 50% funding. But moving forward in 2022 and beyond, all First Nation and Indigenous projects, as long as there's some inclusion there, are eligible for 75 to 100% funding. So depending on how everything comes together and coming up with a proposal, which we'd very, very likely receive funding, there's an opportunity to get a significant amount of the dollars to pay for this natural infrastructure to go into the city of Wetaskiwin by the federal government. Next slide, please. Now, Gabby and I have also been talking about how do we come up with the other 50 to 25%? Should we not get 100%? Right now, Project Forest has a really exciting initiative called the Great Canadian Tree Challenge. And we kind of brainstormed some really high level ways of how the Wetaskiwin business community would come together. Now, we've had some partners step up to the plate. Case in point, Ritchie Brothers, who a lot of us around the table probably know about. Their entire company did a shot of maple syrup and challenged all the different business divisions inside their company to step up, do a shot of maple syrup, and become a Project Forest partner. In this case, I think it would be a really fun opportunity to get the Wetaskiwin business community to join the Great Canadian Tree Challenge, do a shot of maple syrup, and engage in this in a really positive way. And how could we potentially raise some funds? There could be, lump sum contributions like all of our other partners have done. But next slide, please. What would be really cool is if somehow we were able to come together and come up with a campaign of round up to the nearest dollar, so that the community members of Wetaskiwin could be, contributing from as little as, 5 or 6 cents to as much as 80 cents. But across the entire business community, that type of volume would really gain momentum and help get us past the finish line. As well, in a post-COVID world, knock on wood, we're going to be able to have community events and community barbecues again. And by having events like that, bringing the community together on one of the areas where, the healing forest might be created, will be a fantastic way to engage the community in a great fundraising endeavor. So just some ideas here, because we know, budgets are tight, but if we use our creative minds and we leverage that with some grant funding, I think we can make a really successful project here. Next slide, please. And the city of Wetaskiwin, if there's money in the budget and we get to that point, is the city willing to provide some funding to create some natural infrastructure and a healing forest and creating some reconciliation opportunities for community members in and around Wetaskiwin and hopefully from much further away? Next slide, please. Now, what will it cost? Very important question. But to be quite honest, until we really nail down a project location, project scope, and when we're going to start getting the first plants in the ground, we won't be able to get much more granular than, it's going to cost between $5 and $20 a tree. Some important questions to ask and answer before I can come up with an accurate budget is, how big do we want the trees? Do we want to incorporate some landscape trees? Do we want to incorporate just a bunch of 1 and 2 year old seedlings? What kind of site preparation are we going to have to do, and what kind of maintenance will be required to transition the landscapes that have been presented earlier in the presentation? So we'll talk about this, we'll work forward, and we'll present a really accurate budget, and then we'll put in a proposal to the 2 billion tree program to try and get some significant funding to help pay for this work. Next slide, please. And who will enjoy the forest? We've heard Travel Alberta come up a couple times, but first and foremost, the First Nation and Indigenous community members. This is what this area is for. It's also for, the citizens of Wetaskiwin to come out and learn, to contemplate, to reflect, and to interact with these natural landscapes. And when, communicated effectively, I think groups will come from a long distance and be able to come experience this place and also experience the great city of Wetaskiwin. Next slide, please. And then next steps. So the only thing that Project Forest is asking from council today is for permission to include the city of Wetaskiwin and the concept of a healing forest in our 2 billion tree proposal for the urban and municipality stream. Timelines aren't necessarily super important. We just need to say we're chatting with the city of Wetaskiwin. Project Forest will be committing to planting 10,000 trees per year in urban settings. And then we need to define a project location and talk about timelines. How council goes about this is certainly up to you, and we're here to answer questions and support in any way that we can to help create significant impact. Next slide, please. And I will say that's it. And I always like to leave with this quote, because the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. Second best time is now. So again, if you guys need my contact information, it is there. And if not, I'm here, Angela and I are here to answer questions. So thank you again for having us. And we do really appreciate the opportunity to chat with everybody this morning.
Thank you, Mike.
You're
Questions?
welcome.
I do. Mike, is Project Forest a company or are you a government? Like, I'm trying to figure out where you would fit into this as opposed to just the city deciding to put in trees in a park and call it a healing forest.
Yeah, thank you for the question. And I didn't get into all the granular details. Project Forest is a Part 9 non-for-profit in Alberta. And what we would be able to do is interact with council, come up with plans, and then come up with a way to execute the project. So this would also include things like engaging with community members, engaging with the Indigenous community, and coming up with a plan that's really quite impactful. And then we do have the expertise to source all the material and then carry out the work.
And that would be at a cost to the city?
Potentially, or depending on how the grant funding would come in, we might be able to significantly minimize that cost or potentially eliminate it if some of those fundraising and business community events were able to take it past the finish line. All of our projects have been executed to date by bringing in partners from the Canadian business community and also leveraging funding from the feds, which is a really special way to interact with the folks, specifically at Swan River First Nation. We were able to get all that work done at zero cost to them. And potentially we might be able to do the same thing with the city of Wetaskiwin if we're able to, execute on all those fronts.
But these grants would be available to the city, whether we partner with Project Forest or any other organization?
Very much so, they would be available to you. The one thing that, so NRCan is the administrators of the 2 billion tree program. They don't want to be necessarily working with every single municipality across the entire country. They would rather be working with organizations like us and committing to 10,000 plus trees per year. So they would just have to send the money to one instead of, hundreds and hundreds of organizations or municipalities. But the answer is yes, the city of Wetaskiwin will be able to apply for this funding on your own.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Councillor Elliott.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thanks for the presentation, Mike. I have two questions. Is the provincial government involved in funding in any way?
It's more complicated than a yes or a no. At this point in time, the provincial government has not been providing any dollars for the federal 2 billion tree program. And that's kind of one of the challenges the feds have incurred, is they're looking for municipalities or other government jurisdictions or folks like Project Forest to come up with ways to fund the other 50 or 25% of the dollars. So Scott Romaniuk, who was earlier in the presentation, one of the provincial government representatives that is heavily involved in the forestry and agriculture side, they talk on a monthly basis. So when the federal or the provincial government does potentially step up to the plate, we would know. At the moment, the answer is not yet.
Thank you. Second question is, what's the minimum amount of land required to commence with a project like this?
So there's no official minimum, but so last year, when we're talking about from the 2 billion tree perspective, they had an incredible amount of first year grants coming in for sometimes as small as 500 trees. In order for the feds to meet their goal of 2 billion, they don't want to be working on projects much less than 10,000, or else their administrative burden goes through the roof. And that's why for us to apply for the urban municipality stream, we need to commit to 10,000 seedlings per year for that application. At 2,000 stems per hectare, that works out to about 5 hectares. Gabby and I have chatted, and I think a minimum of a 10 hectare footprint would create something of significance that would really bring some value back to the community members. That said, if we could go larger, the impact would be greater. But 10 hectares is a really modest number that does create, a forest, so to speak.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Councillor Aberley.
Thank you. Through the chair to Mike. When I look at this, I get really, really, really excited about the Peace Hills Park option as a continual forest, large, bringing nature back, and then repairing the land that should have never been damaged in the first place, because the hills that are at Peace Hills Park, some of the first evidence of humans in Alberta after the Ice Age. So I love that idea. So can you explain or argue for me the other ones, right? The smaller community, the smaller, closer to our community, right around, all of them seem to be on the outskirts of town, like edging our town, excuse me, for what the benefit to that would be.
So I don't want to kind of argue or push forward a specific agenda. I really think that decision needs to be made by council and maybe some additional conversations. But the benefits that the pockets of reconciliation would be allow us to tell potentially different stories in different areas and to build that connectivity, and just a way for community members to travel through the city in a different way, in a way to experience nature and a way to learn. So there's benefits to both options. At the Peace Hills Park and the contiguous forest opportunity, you can go for a walk in the forest and be in the forest for a long time. Or if we were to piece together these pockets of forest and these pockets of reconciliation, you could have different experiences and learn about different things in different parts of the community. And then in some cases, as you can see in the photos, be in people's backyards. But, from my opinion, I think the most important way, or the best way to answer that question, is consultation, discussion, that includes Indigenous members that are really important to the city of Wetaskiwin. This healing forest is the concept, can't be completed or as impactful as it can without the right engagement process and without the right input from elders in the community and community members, Indigenous and non-Indigenous. It's for everybody, right? It's for all the citizens of Wetaskiwin, all the citizens of Alberta and Canada. So I mean, it's a lot of conversation and really looking at the pros and cons and then coming up with the location and moving forward.
Thank you. And just to follow up, when you were saying that 10 hectares is a good modest number, would the outlying, like the smaller option, would that be enough to provide us with that 10 hectares?
Yeah, so I mean, I think you guys have copies of the presentation, but the specific area is in red in each one of those 4 parcels presented in the slides. And it does equal greater than 10 hectares if all 4 of those options were put together. Correct. And there is certainly 10 hectares of land in Peace Hills Park.
I apologize. I think what I meant to say was, are we going to need to use 10 hectares at each of those 4 spots? So therefore we would need 40 hectares.
No, I'd say cumulatively.
Sorry?
Cumulatively. So all, as long as you have 10 in total or greater, not necessarily in one spot.
Excellent. I love it. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thanks for the questions.
Anything further?
Councillor Billingsley?
Yes, Kevin?
Through the chair to Mike, and I guess especially to Angela and well as Gabby. We spent a significant amount of time in moving the Peace Cairn, and we did it with a lot of consultation with our 4 nations. And now it is on a smaller piece of land right at the end of Main Street, but our water tower is right there. And I guess, Gabby, would that be a place that we could start with?
That is a good question, Kevin. Sue is shaking her head though, so I'm going to get her to answer because I think she knows better than me.
Okay.
Through the chair to Councillor Lonsdale. The site already has other plans. So part of a future phase of the Peace Cairn was to put in a bit of a healing garden and some traditional plants around the Peace Cairn. And because we were looking at it as an event park, we didn't want to commit the entire thing to being planted. So at this time, unless there's a change in direction from the previously approved plans, there would not be enough room there.
Okay, just a question. Thank you very much.
And that was just one thing to add on there that I kind of forgot to mention in my notes. But as we were doing some research, we found there's a healing garden similar to what you just mentioned in St. Albert. And there's a network of healing forests across the country, and tying all these things in together to get the best ideas and come up with the best plan is an important part of the process.
Anything further? Councillor Platts.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. So the two questions that Mike had at the end of his presentation were which location would we prefer, and if we can give permission for them to submit their applications to the federal government. I was curious if we can do that in a committee of the whole meeting, or if I should add this to the agenda in council.
We can't make any decisions in Cal.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Anything further? Thank you very much for your presentation. We will consider it and debate it at further time.
Enjoy the rest of your day, everyone, and thanks again for having us.
Yes, thank you.
Inspector Durantz. Good morning.
Morning, Council, and thank you for the opportunity of providing you with our Q3. It would be your Q4, but I work on the schedule of the federal government, which is April to March. So this will be our Q3 update. First and foremost, first slide there, just an overview again of the detachment. The ones highlighted in red are the new positions that were provided through a policing grant, and also the provincial positions that were provided through the provincial government this year. Next slide, please. Of the 10 new positions that were provided for last year, we've filled all but one. We have 9 people in place, or there's been a person named to that position. The only one position that remains to be fully staffed is the staff sergeant position in general investigation section. We currently have acting staff sergeant Grunau in that position, so the position is actually filled, but that vacates another chair inside the detachment. Of the 4 positions on the municipal side, we had a 50-50 split of trained members and cadets filling those positions. Of particular note, over the last couple of weeks, we've added 4 brand new cadets to the detachment over the last month. So we went through a bit of a transition over the late fall, early winter, with a bit of an exodus of some trained members going out of the detachment, moving on to other duties. And the backfills for those positions have come from the academy. But the 4 positions in the city that filled those 4 new positions on the grant were a 50-50. 2 positions were cadets, 2 positions were experienced members coming in. The criminal analyst position still remains vacant. We have an acting position in place. We've borrowed an analyst from DCAS out of Edmonton, working mostly from home and also in the detachment. However, due to COVID, things like that, most people are working in these positions are working from home anyway. And we're being able to tap into her skill set. We're still looking at a permanent position for that analyst position. Quickly, the crime gauging, what you're seeing here, will be the year end for 2021. Our persons crimes are up 38%. I'll get to these statistics and overview here. Other criminal code down 20%, break and enter specifically down 17% for the year. Theft of motor vehicle unchanged, and theft under up 26%. Next slide, please. Again, these are the same numbers as you saw on the graph above. Overall, but you look at the overall change from 2017 to 2021, we're down 9% overall criminal code. Next slide, please. This is a persons crime grid, gives us an overview breaking down persons crimes into different categories. You've seen this before. I wanted to bring your attention to where it says 2021 and this says homicides and offense related to death. We did not have 5 homicides in the city in 2021. We had none. However, the way our scoring system works, if we assist another detachment with a homicide, that file gets scored to our under these statistics, but they don't go towards Stats Canada statistics and they don't go to the CSI. Of note, I pulled all those 5 files, pulled them apart, and we only had 2 that fell into this category. One was a possible abduction and the other was an attempted murder that we had earlier in the year. If we get to the end of, on the homicide note, if we get to the end of February, we'll be 2 years clear of any homicides inside the city. Other main drivers there, we see sexual assaults, but again, I direct you to the change over the 5-year period, which most are all in a downward trend. We're a little bit up this year. Driving those are assaults and some criminal harassment and uttering threats. This can lead towards pushing or looking at domestic assaults. We have seen an increase over the month of December of 13% in that disharmony in relationship type of file. But overall, the 5-year trend is down 9%. However, we're up 8% for the year 2021. Next slide, please. Again, this is the property crime. This is the one where our crime reduction strategies have the most bang for buck, or in the property related fields. Break and enters are down 17% over the year. We do see an increase in theft over 5,000. It says 125% there. Again, going from 8 offenses last year in 2020 to 18. I did pull these ones apart too and do a bit of an analysis on these. And these are theft of trailers, not motor vehicles, but like holiday trailers or a trailer, a flat deck, most of them flat deck, car haulers, things like that, or that are over $5,000. Again, theft under being there, again, that one is pushed by shoplifting and also theft of bicycle this last year. Again, overall, if we look at the trend over the last 5 years, we're up 8% over the 5-year period. Again, we made some pretty good significant talk, getting back to talking about CSI. What we're going to see is a pretty good work on CSI because break and enters, which are down by 17%, hold a high value inside the crime severity index calculations, as well as the homicides that I spoke to earlier. Just a review of our priorities inside our annual performance plan for 2021. The priorities being in red and then the initiatives being in black underneath that. And I'll have a rundown here in the next slide on where we were driving those. Search warrants, we should actually move that from Q3 to 4 to 6 for a total of 18. Overall, our search warrants are up 63% in the last couple of years. Intel meetings, we're on par to meeting our categories on that. Curfew checks, still below the number that we set for as a target, but what has replaced the curfew checks, I think I mentioned last quarter, was the hotspot checks. Hotspot checks are areas within the city where we see crime occurring, and then we're driving our patrols into those areas and conducting physical checks of that area. So if we had a business that was broken into several times over a period of time, that would be generate a hotspot. The members then go to that particular area, do a patrol in that area, and then report back their findings in a separate file in relation to that. And we're able to go back in and pull how many hotspot checks we've actually done. We've done 450 of those so far this year.
All the other ones are online. Downtown foot patrols. This was generated due to the fact that the hub was down on the downtown core. And what we did was we just moved our foot patrols into the encampment area and down into around the shelter, and including vehicle patrols in that. So we've also added in our dedicated foot patrols, 291 for the year so far. Next slide, please. Some significant files of interest. I think I spoke last time about we had some, unfortunately, we had some sudden death overdoses with regards to fentanyl that was in the community. And as a spin out of a couple of those investigations, we were able to, the crew team was able to establish a CDSA investigation. We executed a search warrant and we seized methamphetamine and fentanyl believed to be related to those fatal overdoses in town. Search warrant executed on September 22nd, 77 grams of methamphetamine, 4 of fentanyl. This was also had connections to other areas within the province. And subsequently, persons were charged with possession for the purpose of trafficking. Most, if not all, were prolific offenders who frequented Wetaskiwin and Musqueam areas. On September 29th, one subject was arrested for possession purpose of trafficking in heroin. Search warrant executed on the resident was resulted in a seizure of $7,600 in cash, 15 grams of heroin, 7 grams of fentanyl, 4 grams of methamphetamine, and 75 milliliters of GHB. There were 7 individuals that were arrested at that time. The subject is a prolific offender with ties to both Wetaskiwin and the Camrose area. Another search warrant, November 10th, crew team executed search warrant to Wetaskiwin rural property, leading to the arrest of 5 people and the recovery of 15 firearms and over $100,000 of stolen property. Subjects were charged and are currently awaiting trial. This one was just located a couple of miles south of town, south of the John Deere dealer. And you could almost easily just call it a chop shop kind of environment. Numerous pieces of stolen property were covered there. Again, that was a crew team file resulting from information garnered from within the city on other and ongoing investigations. And a little kudos to that one as well to our county bylaw, working with county bylaw partners who were also on the property on doing another investigation. So just kind of how we work with our partners in the area can also generate other investigations and help us in our goals there. 25th, information received, suspicious sawed-off shotgun, person with a sawed-off shotgun, and we did a search warrant in the city, executed, and we recovered said sawed-off shotgun and also ammunition, brass knuckles, crossbows, and counterfeit money. 2 people were charged in that event. And on the 23rd, Wetaskiwin team executed a search warrant on a Wetaskiwin resident where a subject was in possession of multiple firearms, 2 firearms, brass knuckles, tasers, and a baton were recovered. 1 person charged in that event. That is a quick summary for the quarterly report. As we move into our Q4, we start planning for the annual performance plan, and we will build a new plan with new priorities coming up which will start April 1st. So we'll begin to wind down in our Q4. We start to wind down our priorities, have a look at what worked, have a look what we want to pivot on, build on, or add to. And just plant the seed with you folks that we'll be back before you again to discuss the APP itself. But if you have any ideas on what you think the priority should be for policing priorities for the community, I'm all ears. And any questions?
Thank you very much, Inspector Durrance. Questions from the council? Councillor Nielsen.
Thank you. Keith, you touched on the topic of domestic disputes and violence. Yep. Is there data that breaks that out, or is it just all under assaults or aggravated assaults or whatever? Like how does the community get a handle on understanding the level of domestic violence in the community itself?
I could break out the number of times where we actually laid a charge, and that would be the only thing I could break out on that domestic or the spousal stuff. Just because we have an alleged offense or a file on an assault doesn't necessarily mean your charge was laid. In good portion of our spousal type files or domestic disharmony, if you want to call it that, we're mandated that if there's an aggressor and there's assault laid, there will be a charge laid. right? Whether that actually goes through all the way through the court system is up to the Crown prosecutors, that sort of stuff. Based on what I'm seeing and what we've seen traditionally, it's not in an epidemic. It's not rising quickly. I could have another look at the actual spousal numbers, and I could come back with you with a number. I can send it to Paul in an email to get back to you folks on exactly where we're at trending. I think I might even have pulled that out just a second. My side notes. So all overall 5-year for domestic is down 9%, but we're up 13% in December, right? And then overall this year we're up 7%, but on the 5-year average we're actually down 9%. So I would say it's where it normally is. It's not something that's running pretty high, although it was up significantly in December. Again, I think I've talked about this last time I was here, significant pressures in our communities and our families and everything else with what's been going on for the last couple of years in the world itself, right? Which can add to disharmony in relationships and things like that. Financial pressures, masking, no masking, vaccinations, you name it. The COVID push in this area is going to be at the fore, or not, it's not going to be, it won't be the main driver, but it will be one of those drivers. But overall, I think with a 5-year average of down 9%, although we've been up this last half of the year, I think I've looked at the last couple of quarters, it's been kind of itching up. We'll begin to kind of look at that again, and we'll continue to look at, it's a priority for us. How much we can actually, there's not too many crime reduction strategies we can lay on that. I think we talked about it last time, sir. I think we actually broke out the number of domestics we had. And one of the only things that we can think of is with regards to crime reduction strategies is ensure that we're doing prolific offender management. If it's the reoccurring family over and over and over again, that we interject with the court systems and ensure that there's proper investigations done and that the offender is held accountable. So again, persons crimes are hard to put crime reduction strategies on, not like property crime, where you can increase patrols, prolific offender management, that kind of stuff. You can really curtail those down and have some really good results. So I hope that answers your question. Overall, we're keeping an eye on it. Every single domestic file, we have significant policy surrounding this. Every file is reviewed at 24 hours. It's reviewed again at 72 hours by supervisors, right? And each one of those files is looked at meticulously to ensure it's moving forward correctly.
Thank you. That's good for now. You also just, in your response to that one, you talked about charges laid and so forth.
Yep.
And does the RCMP keep track of activity related to charges laid? So for example, I'm going to be quite crass, but is there a scorecard? And by that, I mean, do the RCM follow up saying, okay, our officers laid X number of charges, so many went to court, 5 were kicked out of court, 5 were fines, 2 were incarcerations or whatever. Like, do you guys get a handle on what your efforts are resulting in at the judicial level?
Not at the judicial level, but we do have a conclusion to charge rate that we look at, and that's on every crime. So if we have 123 B&Es, I can give you a percentage is around 26 or 23% where we're laying a charge, right? Same thing with domestic violence and assaults. It's a little higher. Property crime results are less so because they're harder to solve but when we go to a domestic, usually both people are there and we can sort out and then lay the appropriate charge that needs to be laid. So to answer your question, we don't keep score of what happens after it gets into the judicial system. That would be for the judiciary to provide information on. But I can give you a breakdown of number of calls for service versus our conclusion to charge rate. That I can provide you with. There's another detailed report I can pull out that gives us that.
And is that judicial scorecard through justice? Is that available to the public?
I believe it is. I think they do a year-end report judicially. again, that's something we don't have control of, right? Once the file gets into the court system, it's then managed and maintained by the Crown prosecutors. And we we meet regularly with the Chief Crown here in Wetaskiwin. Myself and my senior managers, we meet with them on a regular basis. And what we want to know from the Crown prosecutors to ensure that if they're going to remove a charge, or if they're going to kick a charge to the curb, or if they're going to move a file forward, we don't want it to be on something that we haven't done properly, right? We want to make sure our processes are thorough, our investigation is done correctly, so that there's not a technicality, for example, and they're going to kick a charge out because, wow, no likelihood of a conviction because the police didn't do X, Y, Z. So we meet every 6 weeks or so with the local Crown prosecutor and get that feedback from him saying, and we also get feedback on files where they say whether we didn't meet the mark on this, or they said, due to volume, we're just going to take a plea to this one. And we're going to, often is the time there might be 6 or 7 charges laid, and they will take a plea to 2 of them and drop the other 4. That happens all the time. Yeah. There's a significant amount of trial time that is booked on a trial day, but there's no way that they could ever get through the number of hours of trial time that actually is booked versus what they have time for on a given trial day. They only have about 6 hours of trial time in a day, but they book way over that. So when they do get to court, this is where you see charges being withdrawn or plea bargains being entered by way of defense, and they do that. One program that is coming, and it's topical, so I'll just add it in here, is we're moving towards a referral to Crown system, which means we will forward our file to the Crown prosecutor with recommendations on what we want to charge a person with. The Crown will then do the review of that file, and they say, yes, charge them with these 3 things, not all 6, or yep, charge them with all 6, and we'll take it from there. So that process is coming to Wetaskiwin. We're just in preliminary conversations with this. It's a report to Crown Council. It's a BC model that when I was in BC years ago, they have that model out there where we recommend what the charges should be. They decide what the charges will be, and then we lay the appropriate charges. So some of that will alleviate any issues, but it's one thing that we push our senior managers and our corporals is making sure that our investigations are done correctly, so that there's no reason why the Crown will just look at it and go, oh, it's broken, so we're just going to get rid of it. We want to make sure it's good to go outside. When we put it out the door, it's a good product, and it's up to the Crown then to do what they wish.
Great, thank you. One last question, if I may, Mr. Chair. Keith, on your APP tracking.
Yep.
Your explanation of the curfew checks, moving more to hotspot checks. But when I look at hotspot checks, I see in the first quarter 0 hotspot checks, but you're doing curfew checks.
Yep.
Quarter 2, you jumped up to almost 400 hotspot checks. And then in the third quarter,
we dropped again.
It dropped. So does that mean there's no hotspots in our community anymore?
Nope. There was a full transition. What we ended up doing was, and this is one thing that our analyst does for us, the analyst will identify possible hotspot checks. They will give it to the crew team and to our senior managers, and we'll look at them and say, yeah, we agree with this list. Say there's 20. We put those 20 into the list. We provide those to the members. The members then do the patrols in those areas. What the analyst then looks for is, what is the effect we're having on those crime hotspots? Have we eliminated it? Has there been no more crime in that particular area? Or have we deflected it into, say, 2 blocks over? Or has the patrols had the desired effect? So what ended up happening was we ended up having a long list of hotspot checks for that we didn't even start it in the first quarter. We did it in the second quarter. We released the members and away they went. Then we halted the program, had to retool it, come up with another list of 20 hotspot checks, and then send the members out again. That there was a bit of a delay in getting that list out from a new list. So it's a living thing. It's not just, okay, here's the 20 hotspot checks for the whole year, away you go. We're checking on that list really to see if those areas that we are still hotspots, or have they been deflected? Is it moved 2 streets over? Or is it moved from one side of the industrial park to another? Or we haven't had any crime in that area in the last couple of months. Let's take that one off the list. Let's add this other one that's now come up to be a hotspot.
So based on that, And again, I'm not holding you to
Yeah.
it. What would you predict for Q4 then?
Somewhere upwards of that, in around that 100 to 200 mark, or even maybe even a little more. Depends how quickly the members jump on these new hotspots. One thing we don't do is, are they patrol friendly? In other words, you can go and do this one and then that one, and it makes a perfect route, or is it a out, back? So that's up to the member to decide on that particular stuff. But I don't want to commit to an absolute number, but
No, I understand
it
that.
should be significantly higher now that we got the new list together.
Great, thank you.
Councillor Elliott.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through to the inspector. Thank you for waiting so long. You've been here a long time. I just have a couple of questions, Keith. Is there any thought to, previous councils talked about auxiliary police. Is there any thought to that in your upcoming goals?
The auxiliary program still exists. It was revamped several years ago. Unfortunately, the shooting in St. Albert, where the auxiliary constable was shot and Constable Bond was killed.
Yes.
Made for the government to look at that program completely, and the RCMP to look at the whole auxiliary program and change it completely. Gone are the days where the auxiliaries wear a similar uniform except for a patch and they patrol with the members and that sort of stuff. Our auxiliary program now is moved to a strictly community policing format. And there's not a lot of drive for folks to come out and volunteer in that capacity. Now, that's not saying it's dead. It's just, it doesn't have the same desire or the same bling as it once did for those in the community.
Okay. The other question is related to the city of Edmonton. Is forgiving minor drug charges a municipal or a federal? Does it come under municipal or federal jurisdiction? Edmonton's talking about doing away with minor people with minor drug possession
Now I know
charges.
you're going this. Okay.
So is that federal or is that municipal?
Well, the Controlled Drugs and Substances Act is a federal act. EPS has the jurisdiction for the city of Edmonton, or for the city of Edmonton. Therefore, they have the authority through the Soljan to police that activity. It's not something that the RCMP is looking towards at this particular juncture. I don't want to speak for EPS on exactly where they're going with that. I think the legalization of marijuana was a step to that avail over the last couple of years. Instead of a kid or anyone for that matter, an adult who has a little bit of marijuana on them, then getting a criminal record and it carrying on with them for the rest of their life, so to speak, until they get a pardon, was a step that the federal government took to kind of minimize that. I don't believe it's in the realm for the RCMP to even consider that for harder drugs at this particular juncture. Again, we get our marching orders from the federal government. So if they go down that path, then we will look at that. But at this juncture, no.
So we're not going to get a recommendation from you. That's good.
Yeah.
Just the last thing is, is there any influence on all these stats over the last few years related to COVID, whether it be provincially or federally?
Yeah, I've been pounding that table with the analysts for almost 2 years, going, tell me how much is COVID. We saw a significant reduction in break and enters in the early part of 2021. And I mean, significant, like down 80% right? Mm-hmm. Which I believe was both a carryover of some COVID, also some prolific offender management. We had a little bit of a perfect storm that was good for us as far as the numbers go. I think if you look at the 5-year average, you'll see that in 2018, we were really busy as far as criminal code goes. And then you see 19, 20, things drop off, and then we're starting to see things pick up again now, right? So when I see a number of something going up by, 10% or 15%, but I look at the 5-year average and we're actually still going down, but it's now coming back up. I foresee that's a little bit of the COVID effect as we open things up, as restrictions come off, we're going to see things speed up again as far as crime goes. On that being said, in the rural area, for sure, I know that our rural folks, the provincial people out in the Wetaskiwin and Camrose County, we're seeing some significant downward movement in break and enters, and that has to do with people being at home looking after their stuff. That I can put to COVID because there's just so many more people that are actually working from home or staying put and not traveling as much. We don't have the snowbirds that are taking off, leaving their farms unattended for 4 months of the year, that kind of stuff. So I think, yes, I think we're seeing a significant effect there. As they open things up, we will watch, it'll go back up again. But what we want to do is look at that 5-year trend and at least make sure that we're still going down in the right direction.
Thank you,
Does that answer,
Inspector.
sir?
Yes, it does.
Okay,
Thank you, Inspector. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Councillor Adderley?
Thank you. Through the chair to Inspector Durance, can you just give me a really brief rundown on the kidnapping hostage abduction number? What is that like? What is that actually telling me? Does that make sense? Is it kidnapping or?
A lot of this has to do with, again, domestics, non-custody orders, or someone having a custody order and not returning the kid when they're supposed to. These types of things, they fall into that category. Do we charge that person with abduction? No. Do we have strangers picking kids up on the street? No, we don't. Most of these, if not all, it's very rare to have a child abducted and taken off the street. Where we have these files is where there's no custody order in place. It happens over Christmas a lot of times, or summer holidays sometimes, where one spouse will take the other and take the child away.
Okay.
It scores as an abduction, but it's a parental abduction, or and ultimately, if they had a custody order in place, it would be a breach of a court order instead of an abduction.
Right.
But because there's no court order, it gets scored that way, and then we investigate it as such. But then ultimately, maybe there's a charge made, maybe there's not.
Okay, thank you very much.
Anything further? Inspector Durance, thank you very much for your report. We will break for lunch, come back for regular council meeting at 1, and then conclude committee of the whole after the regular council.
It will take me 2 minutes if you'll allow it, Deputy Billingsley. It will take me 2 minutes unless you want to discuss and debate them.
No, I would like to do it afterwards.
All right.
Once the recording is done, if council could just hang out for 1 minute.